Chapter 27:18. Part of it is the all-heaven coins, and part of it is the barter. Venerable Jiao smiled. Okay, Uncle Jiao, please follow me to settle the accounts. This Immortal Ascension gathering is over. All the cultivators who came to participate today can become members of our Taichu Chamber of Commerce. In the future, they will receive a 5% discount when they purchase items from the Immortal Ascension gathering on the All-Heaven Forum. Xingyue smiled. Then, everyone saw their All-Heaven talismans receive a message saying that they had become members of the Taichu Chamber of Commerce. The immortals who did not manage to buy the items they wanted from the Immortal Ascension gathering smiled happily. They did not expect to get such an unexpected reward from the Immortal Ascension gathering. After Venerable Jiao stood up, the Azure Profound Spiritual Master and the other two followed him and left with Xingyue. The other Grand Unity cultivators realized that the four of them had already teamed up. Sigh, it's over. Jingli sighed. Everyone stood up and left. The Immortal Ascension gathering was over, so there was no need for the immortals to stay on the island. The ferry at the center of the lake became very lively because there was a restrictive spell on the island, and the Taichu Chamber of Commerce also had its own rules. Only grand immortals could fly through the air here, and the other immortals had to abide by the rules. If they wanted to leave, they had to take a small boat. While waiting, Jingli invited Ning Qi enthusiastically. Brother Wu, why don't you come with us to Tianyi Palace? Tong Huan nodded with a smile and invited Ning Qi along with Jing Xian. In their opinion, Ning Qi's strength was enough to be on par with them. As long as they were not stupid, they would choose to befriend such a genius. I still have some urgent matters to attend to. I'll go to Tianyi Palace to find you after I'm done. Ning Qi declined with a smile. When Jingli saw this, he wanted to say a few more words, but after Jing Xian glanced at him, he shut his mouth and could only helplessly say to Ning Qi, "All right then, Brother Wu, remember, you must come to our Tianyi Immortal Palace as a guest in the future." On the opposite side of the island stood two silhouettes. Dragonborn and Proto's eyes scanned through the faces one by one. "Brother Longqing? What's going on? You still haven't found that guy?" Proto asked with a frown. Longqing frowned. "I can feel his aura among these people, but I can't lock onto him. It's very likely that it has nothing to do with the formation here." Proto glanced at the densely packed heads on the island in the middle of the lake and said with some surprise, "Doesn't that mean we can't find him at all? There are so many immortals participating in the Immortal Ascension Assembly, we can't possibly test them one by one, right? Or maybe we can ask him." Ning Beixian must have changed his appearance, but his way of doing things won't change. Longqing looked at the immortals who had come ashore in small boats from the island in the center of the lake. His eyes flickered, and the two of them split up to gather information. About a quarter of an hour later, the two of them met. They looked at each other and saw the surprise in each other's eyes. "You also know?" Plotter asked. "Yes." Longqing nodded. "Who would have thought that this brat would dare to kill someone here and leave behind such a clear clue? Haha, today is the day he dies," Plotter said with a smile that was not quite a smile. The tortoise-riding old man from the South Sea died to Ning Beixuan's sword, and his appearance was the same as the other Grand Luo who died to Ning Beixuan's sword. All of them had a wound on their foreheads. Longqing smiled. "However, I'm rather curious. Exactly what sort of sword technique does that brat cultivate? Logically speaking, he should be famous on the Heavenly Tao rankings right now. But after he left the Earthly Immortal rankings, I no longer see his name." Plotter's eyes searched for Ning Qi as he spoke. "We'll know once we suppress him." Longqing's lips curled up. "Found him." Plotter's eyes suddenly locked onto a figure. Hearing that, Longqing followed his gaze and saw that the person was almost the same as the one he had inquired about. Ning Qi had been chatting with Jingli and the others when he suddenly sensed something and looked towards the other side of the lake, meeting Plotter and Longqing's gaze. Those two are both perfected arcane immortals, and their auras are much stronger than the arcane immortals present today. Ning Qi's eyes twitched slightly, and his heart instantly became more solemn. He had a feeling that it was not a coincidence that those two were looking at him. Both sides simply stared at each other across the lake. "Brother Wu, it's our turn." Jingli and the others boarded a small boat and waved at Ning Qi. "Let's go first, everyone. I just remembered that I left something in the Emerald Bamboo Tower." Ning Qi smiled and cupped his fists, then glanced at Plotter and Long Qing before turning and walking towards the Emerald Bamboo Tower. Jingli and the others were slightly taken aback and found it a little strange, but they did not take it to heart. "That kid noticed us," Proto said with a grin. He did not think much of Ning Qi at all. Even if the outside world said that Ning Qi's aptitude was so monstrous, he was still just a golden immortal who could kill Grand Luo above his level. Against a arcane immortal, he would still have to surrender. Lake Heart Island belongs to the Taichu Chamber of Commerce. We can't do anything on the island. Long Qing frowned. What's there to be afraid of? What's there to fear about a mere Taichu Chamber of Commerce? Brother Long, your master is a follower of the White Emperor, Immortal Emperor. As long as we get on the island and state our origins, the Taichu Chamber of Commerce will naturally hand over that kid with both hands. Plotter smiled nonchalantly. Longqing neither nodded nor shook his head. Instead, he leapt up and landed on a small boat. Seeing this, Proto followed. The two of them quickly arrived at the island in the middle of the lake and headed in the direction that Ning Qi had left. They really are in combat mode. Ning Qi glanced at his own attributes. He was now listed as a combat mode by the system and could not enter the top cultivation training grounds, which meant that those two were here to kill him. The Nether Dragons? I don't think I've offended any of their clans. Looks like they're here for another reason. Ning Qi pondered as he walked. He felt that the enemies were either looking for him because of the deaths of Li Si and Bai Xingxue, or Jiang Yu and Jiang Hao. As for the other enemies, who would dare to look for trouble with him? Ning Qi did not expect that the two were here for both reasons. Ning Qi walked to the back of a small building. After making sure that he was out of sight, he transformed into a housefly and flew out of the island in the middle of the lake. Soon, he left Lake Heart Island. In the process, he saw Long Qing and Plotter searching for him. Chapter 27:19. A trace of a fierce expression suddenly flashed in Long Qing's eyes as he gazed towards the outside of the island. In the next moment, a flying sword shot into the sky, and it carried along the extremely vast energy of the Grand Tao as it flew swiftly towards the outside of the island. At the same time, such a strong wave of magical power caused Xing Yue and the others to look up. Someone's attacking on the island? Li Li's expression changed. Daoist Jiao glanced at Qi Xuezhen and the others, then stood up and said, "Could it be that those Grand Unity Immortals are not satisfied and are secretly playing tricks? Let's go take a look." Daoist Jiao sneered. On the other side, Ning Qi, who had already left the island and thought that he had shaken off those two, suddenly felt a terrifying aura behind him. With his strength, he would be heavily injured if he was hit by that aura head-on, even if he did not die. Fortunately, the aura's target was not him, but the entire area, as if the other party could not pinpoint his exact location. However, Ning Qi's luck was not so good, as he was right in the center of the area. "Who is it? Is there someone who dares to rob us on Bluewater Planet? This is outrageous." The immortals' expressions all changed. There were quite a few profound immortals among them, and Jing Li and the others were coincidentally among them. The profound immortals and the Grand Luo around them all made a move, wanting to block the attack. In the next instant there was a loud boom and waves of screams rang out on the street. The profound immortals did not fare too well either, as blood flowed from the corners of their mouths, making them look rather haggard. The entire street was almost shattered. A few of the Grand Luo on the street had already died with a hint of unwillingness in their eyes. Even if the rest of the Grand Luo were not dead, they were heavily injured. Tong Huan protected Jing Xian and Tong Man tightly. Their injuries did not seem to be too serious, but Jing Li was not so lucky. He had lost one of his ears, and blood was flowing out continuously. "Sister, are you all right?" Jing Li crawled over to Jing Xian, somewhat agitated. He only breathed a sigh of relief when he saw that her aura was still stable, and immediately looked in the direction of the attack, cursing loudly. Tong Huan's expression was dignified as she held Jing Xian's shoulder. A trace of anger flashed in her eyes. Who was it that injured people right after the Immortal Ascension gathering ended? Although he was angry, he could also see that the strength of the person who attacked was not small. On this street, at least 70% of the people had just come out from the island in the center of the lake. Which immortal who could participate in the Immortal Ascension assembly wasn't a dragon among men? But now, dozens of Grand Luo and several mystic immortals had been injured by a single blow. Some of the Grand Luo who were unlucky enough to be closest to the center of the attack died on the spot. Brother Wu? Why are you here? Jing Li's gaze suddenly fell upon Ning Qi. Ning Qi's seat was very close to the dead Grand Luo, and Tong Huan could not help but look toward him when she heard Jing Li's exclamation as well. There was a flash of surprise in her eyes. Although Ning Qi looked rather disheveled at the moment, with his clothes torn and some bloodstains on his body, he was still full of vigor and vigor. Logically speaking, where he was standing, several Grand Luo were killed by a single blow, and Ning Qi was merely a mid-stage golden immortal. He should be dead for sure. That's right. Ning Qi ignored Jing Li and looked into the sky. At this moment, everyone could see a flying sword emitting a pale golden brilliance floating in the air. The aura of the great path emanating from this flying sword made everyone feel extremely heavy. A superior grade Dao item. Could it be that Senior Tai has attacked us? Everyone was in slight disbelief. The mystic immortals who had intended to regain their dignity looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. If it was a Tai who had attacked, they could only kneel and surrender without even the right to resist. Did one of us bid for something good during the Immortal Ascension Assembly? I didn't. Me neither. Someone hurriedly expressed his opinion, but everyone looked at each other with a trace of suspicion. In the next moment, two figures arrived through the air. Behind them were the guards of the Taichu Chamber of Commerce. These guards looked at the two figures with some fear as they stood in the void around them and surrounded them. Who are you? Why are you fighting on our Taichu Chamber of Commerce's island? One of the guards berated coldly. The other guards around them did not make a sound. While they were shocked, they were secretly guessing the origins of the two. They felt that these two people were more terrifying than ordinary Xian immortals. Moreover, the high-grade Dao weapon flying sword in the void also proved that these two people were not simple. They were just ordinary guards of the Taichu Chamber of Commerce. If these two people really wanted to fight, they would not even have the confidence to last for 10 breaths. Yes, they could only pray that Xing Yue and the others would arrive soon. The two of us have an enemy. Previously, on the island in the center of the lake of your Chamber of Commerce, we were careless and let him slip away. In a moment of desperation, we had to act. Please don't take offense. Long Cheng looked at Ning Qi indifferently and smiled. There was a smile on Proto's lips, but he ignored the guards of the Taichu Chamber of Commerce. Everyone could clearly feel a hint of disdain in his smile. Enemy? Everyone followed Long Cheng's gaze and saw Ning Qi. Ning Qi, on the other hand, merely patted the dust off his body and met Long Cheng's gaze calmly. Brother Wu. Jing Li was a little surprised. Tong Huan and the other two looked at each other and suddenly felt rather fortunate. If Ning Qi had come with them just now, they would probably die at the hands of the two mystic immortals, just like those unlucky Grand Luo. So it's that kid, but he's merely a mid-stage golden immortal. How did he provoke such powerful enemies? Everyone looked at Ning Qi with a hint of doubt in their eyes. It was normal for a prodigy like Ning Qi who could kill Grand Luo above his level to have enemies. However, Long Cheng and the other two were clearly perfected mystic immortals and had superior grade Dao weapons. Their origins were probably no weaker than any of the mystic immortals present. Why would such beings join forces for a mid-stage golden immortal? Even going so far as to offend the Taichu Chamber of Commerce and use force on the island? The guards of the Taichu Chamber of Commerce looked at Ning Qi when they heard that and were instantly put in a difficult position. The guard who spoke earlier said to Long Cheng and the other two, "This young master participated in the Taichu Chamber of Commerce's Immortal Ascension gathering, so he's a guest of the Taichu Chamber of Commerce. It doesn't matter what grudge he has with the two of you, we of the Taichu Chamber of Commerce won't let anyone target our guests." "Are you going to turn your back on us?" Proto looked at the guard, a strong killing intent flashing in his eyes. The guard, who was merely a perfected Grand Luo Golden Immortal, felt his heart skip a beat when he saw that, but remembered Xing Yue's rules and said forcefully, "I'm sorry, but you two naturally have to abide by the rules here. Then I'll kill you first." Chapter 27:20. Young lady. The guards of the Taichu Chamber of Commerce breathed a sigh of relief when they heard Xing Yue's voice. The nearby immortals relaxed when they saw this. When they saw Xing Yue with Daoist Jiao and the other primordial unity experts, they looked at Longqing and Proto with a hint of schadenfreude. Proto and Longqing turned to look. They first saw Xing Yue, then Spiritual Master Jiao and the other primordial unity cultivators, and their expressions changed slightly. "Who do you want to kill?" Xing Yue glanced at the two of them and said indifferently. The immortal realm was vast, and not all geniuses would meet each other. Therefore, Xing Yue and Long Qing did not know each other. Proto restrained the arrogance on his face. With 4 primordial unity cultivators present, he would not dare to be arrogant in front of them. Even his family had a primordial unity cultivator. "Are you the person in charge of the Taichu Chamber of Commerce here?" "I am Long Qing. How should I address you?" Long Qing smiled. Long Qing? When everyone heard this name, they all sucked in a breath of cold air and looked at Dragonborn in disbelief. Proto introduced himself at the right time. "I am Proto." "Proto?" Everyone looked at the two of them in shock. The guards of the Taichu Chamber of Commerce had a look of fear in their eyes. The way they looked at the two of them changed drastically. "Brother-in-law, did I hear that right? Long Cheng? Proto? I remember that the first on the list of mysterious immortals is also called Long Cheng, and the 5th is also called Proto. Is this a coincidence? Or have these two existences on the mysterious immortal rankings actually joined forces to pursue Brother Wu?" Jingli was dumbfounded. He looked at Ning Qi with a strange look. He did not expect that Brother Wu, who he had been chatting with for the past few days, would attract the attention of 2 big shots on the list of mysterious immortals. This meant that Ning Qi's identity was definitely not simple. At this moment, Tong Huan had fallen into a state of shock as well, and she was in slight disbelief. Tong Man glanced at Ning Qi with a slightly complicated gaze. Earlier, she was very displeased with the trace of arrogance that Ning Qi unintentionally emitted, but now it seemed like Ning Qi's identity was probably much more terrifying than she had imagined. Not any random golden immortal could attract the joint pursuit of 2 existences on the ranking of mysterious immortals, and one of them was even ranked first on the ranking of mysterious immortals. At the profound immortal realm, being able to be ranked first on the rankings of profound immortals was much more valuable than the rankings below it. Such an existence, in the future, will advance too quickly. B was something that was set in stone. Even a celestial lord might have a chance of touching it. Is it really the first on the mysterious immortal rankings, Long City? He shouldn't be lying, right? After all, there are 4 grand unity immortals present. Pu Luo Duo is ranked 5th on the ranking of mysterious immortals. Today, he and Long Qing, who is ranked 1st on the ranking of mysterious immortals, came together for this intermediate golden immortal? Who was he? Who is he? Coming to the Immortal Ascension gathering this time was really worth it. Not only did I see so many primordial immortals, I even saw the legendary Immortal Monarch token. Now I've even seen an elusive existence like the first on the mysterious immortal rankings. It's truly exciting. The Xian immortals who had been injured by the two looked at each other and dispelled any thoughts of revenge. Although the forces behind them were also very powerful, there was still a gap between them and Long City's status in the immortal realm. The first on the mysterious immortal rankings, no matter which force he sided with, even if he sided with the Langya immortal emperor, would still gladly accept him. If they offended such an existence, they might even be turned to dust when they walked on the streets in the future. Long City? Proto? So it's the 1st and 5th on the mysterious immortal rankings. Even so, the two of you have no reason to fight on my island. Xingyue's expression did not change as she looked at the two indifferently. Proto frowned slightly and looked at Xingyue. However, he found that he could not see through Xingyue's cultivation. He could only confirm that she was also a Xian immortal. This woman is so calm even after hearing my and Long City's names. Is it really because of the Taichu commerce behind her that she's confident? Proto thought to himself. Long Qing smiled and bowed to the 4 grand immortals. Then he pointed at Ningqi and said to Xingyue, "This person is our enemy. I was a bit impatient and broke the rules here. Please forgive me, Miss and the 4 grand immortals. If I can take this person away, I will be sure to repay him in the future. I'm here to offer a humble apology." Li Li, who was following behind Xingyue, was slightly startled. His gaze landed on Ningqi, and a trace of astonishment flashed across his eyes. How did this kid offend 2 geniuses on the mysterious immortal rankings? Li Li's heart was filled with doubts, but when he thought of the scene where Ningqi killed the tortoise-riding old man from the South Sea, he felt that it wasn't that surprising. Xingyue glanced at Ningqi and said to the two of them in surprise, "Your enemy is an intermediate golden immortal?" Venerable Jiao and the other 3 looked at each other. They were certain that this matter had nothing to do with the group of Tai experts. However, they were extremely curious about Ningqi. The mysterious immortal rankings have been dispatched to pursue this kid. Do all of you think that this kid possesses a rare treasure that's tempting to them? Sage Qi sent a voice transmission with a smile. It's possible. Venerable Blue Mystic smiled. Lady, who said that intermediate golden immortals can't be our enemies? We've broken the rules this time, and we admit it. Why don't we let the higher-ups discuss the rest? We just need to take this kid away today. Proto couldn't help but ask. Long Qing nodded with a smile. At this moment, Ningqi suddenly said, "I'm very curious. How did you find me? Do I have a radar on me?" Radar? What's this? Everyone looked at Ningqi in confusion. Long Qing smiled. This is all thanks to the senior who lives in the Xianjian sect. He was the one who gave me your aura. That old man? Ningqi couldn't help but curse in his heart. At the same time, he didn't understand why the green-robed elder would do such a thing. Could it be that the other party still thought that he had a close relationship with the Tiandao family? Xianjian sect? Everyone was slightly stunned when they heard this keyword. Then, a few of them couldn't help but look at Ningqi and gasped in their hearts. They seemed to have guessed Ningqi's identity. There was only one Xianjian sect in the celestial world, and it was on the ancestral planet. There was probably only one person in the Xianjian sect who was worthy of 2 existences on the mysterious immortal rankings taking action. Xingyue's eyes moved slightly. She gave Ningqi a deep look, then smiled at the two of them. "I'm sorry. Even though he's your enemy, he's on Blue Water Planet today. He's a guest of the Taichu Chamber of Commerce. If you want to cause trouble for him, wait until he leaves Blue Water Planet. He's under the protection of the Taichu Chamber of Commerce. Chapter 27-21. This is going to be troublesome, Ning Qi smiled bitterly in his mind. The Azure Mystic Spiritual Master was Li Si's father. Li Si had died in the Xianjian sect, and although he didn't go to the ancestral star for revenge, he wouldn't be able to die so easily if he was caught today. Senior, this kid isn't a disciple of the Xianjian sect. Longqing smiled. Proto's expression didn't change much. Ning Qi's heart skipped a beat. The Azure Mystic Spiritual Master knew his identity, but he dared to hide it from the Grand Unity Immortal. It wasn't as simple as revenge. So these two are related to Jiang Yu as well. Do they want to capture me alive? Ning Qi thought. There were tigers in the back and wolves in the front. Neither side was easy to get along with. Not a disciple of the Xianjian sect? The Azure Mystic Spiritual Master frowned, but he waved his hand. You two can leave now. This is Aquamarine Star, and you must follow the rules here. Xing Yue couldn't help but look at the Azure Mystic Spiritual Master. Since when did the Tai sect speak up for the Taichu Chamber of Commerce? Logically speaking, with Longqing's identity, even if ordinary Tai didn't take them seriously, they wouldn't choose to offend them. Unless the Azure Mystic Spiritual Master is also interested in this person? Interesting. Xing Yue's gaze landed on Ning Qi and her eyes flashed. Senior, what do you mean? Longqing frowned. The Azure Mystic Spiritual Master glanced at Ning Qi, then at the two. I've made myself clear. You can leave now. As for where you go, it's up to you, as long as you don't stay in Aquamarine Star. Brother Longqing, what does this person mean? Proto couldn't help but look at Longqing with a serious look. If the Tai wanted to protect Ning Qi, the two of them wouldn't be able to do anything. He's the Azure Mystic Spiritual Master, the Azure Mystic Spiritual Master, and also Li Si's father. Li Si and my junior brother died in the Xianjian sect, so he must have found out about this kid's true identity. Longqing transmitted his voice. If it was just for revenge, he wouldn't mind giving Ning Qi to the Azure Mystic Spiritual Master. However, he received Xianyuan Zhongtian's order to keep a low profile and not let anyone know Ning Qi's identity. It would be best if he could capture Ning Qi alive. But he couldn't fall into someone else's hands. The Azure Mystic Spiritual Master? Pluto's eyes flickered, and he was no longer as nervous as before. Although primordial unity was powerful, there were still differences in strength. The patriarch of the Nether Dragon tribe was a middle-stage primordial unity perfected immortal, while the Green Mystic Immortal was only at the early stage. If he had no other choice, he could use his background to suppress others. At the same time, Venerable Jiao, Qi Xuezhen, and Venerable Game Master all looked at the Azure Mystic Spiritual Master with a strange look in their eyes. He must be Ning Beixian. That's right. I should have thought of this when I slew a Grand Luo with a single slash. Qing Xian doesn't want us to know. I'm afraid it's not just for revenge. It should be because of the sword technique this kid has. It's just the death of a son. To us Grand Immortals, we can have as many sons as we want. This kid's swordsmanship is more important than his son's life. I thought he would hide in the ancestral star, but I didn't expect that he would dare to leave this place. Aside from his swordsmanship, didn't any of you receive the news that there is a bounty on his head? Anyone who can capture him will be greatly rewarded. So you received it too. I know a thing or two about this. After the three talked for a while, Venerable Jiao laughed and pointed at Longqing and Qi Xuezhen. Didn't you hear what the Azure Mystic Spiritual Master said? Leave Blue Water Planet. We'll protect this kid. Senior, you don't have to worry about me. There was a misunderstanding between us, and I'll solve it. Let's go, shall we? Ning Qi suddenly cupped his hands at Venerable Jiao and smiled at Longqing and Qi Xuezhen. He would rather face two peak abstruse immortals than fall into the hands of a grand immortal. Long Cheng looked at Ning Qi with a faint smile, then cupped his hands at the four grand immortals. Senior, since he's willing to leave with us, it doesn't count as breaking the rules, does it? I'll take my leave now. After that, he looked at Ning Qi. Ning Qi smiled and flew into the sky, ready to leave Blue Water Planet with the two. At this moment, the Azure Mystic Spiritual Master's eerie voice was heard again. You can leave, but he must stay. Before Long Cheng and Qi Xuezhen could react, the Azure Mystic Spiritual Master waved his hand and brought Ning Qi in front of him. Senior, what is the meaning of this? Long Cheng's face darkened. I told you to get lost. Don't you understand? Venerable Game Master smiled. Do you think you can be so unreasonable just because you're a grand immortal? Do you really want me to go back and report this to my master and ask him to come here? Long Cheng's voice turned cold. The immortals around him gasped. Long Cheng's words were a threat. A abstruse immortal threatening a grand immortal. Only the number one on the abstruse immortal leaderboard would have such gut. I'm curious. As the number one on the abstruse immortal leaderboard, who is your master? Venerable Jiao suddenly smiled. Long Qing glanced at him coldly. I'm my master, Xianyuan Zhongtian. Xianyuan Zhongtian? Hiss! Everyone immediately gasped in disbelief. This was even more shocking than when they found out Long Cheng's name. The Azure Mystic Spiritual Master's expression changed drastically. His face turned pale, and the other three didn't fare any better than him. Proto looked at the four grand immortals mockingly. Even his ancestral patriarch had to be careful when facing Xianyuan Zhongtian, let alone four early-stage primordial immortals. Xianyuan Zhongtian, the number two on the Tai True immortal leaderboard? Xing Yue's eyes turned solemn. She didn't think much of Long Qing before, but now, he was worthy of the attention of the entire Taichu Chamber of Commerce. I didn't expect the number one on the abstruse immortal leaderboard to be the disciple of the number two on the Tai True immortal leaderboard. Their inheritance is too terrifying. If this kid breaks through to the primordial immortal realm in the future, wouldn't both of them be on the leaderboard? The immortals present thought in shock. Let's go. Long Qing smiled and nodded at Ning Qi when he saw the Azure Mystic Spiritual Master's silence. In his opinion, how many primordial immortals in the entire celestial realm would dare to disrespect him after he announced his master's name? Wait! The Azure Mystic Spiritual Master's voice sounded again. Long Qing was startled. Would they dare to stop him? Your master, Xianyuan Zhongtian, is indeed very powerful. We are ashamed of our inferiority, but you can't take this kid away now. Chapter 27-22. 10 years. You can take him away after 10 years. The Azure Mystic Spiritual Master said slowly. Qi Xuezhen and the other two looked at each other and couldn't help but smile. They didn't expect the Azure Mystic Spiritual Master to be so quick-witted. In this situation, this expedient plan was the best solution. 10 years, Ryuqing looked at Ning Qi thoughtfully, then at Proto. If they really don't give face to Xianyuan, then there's nothing we can do. We can't go back and ask Xianyuan for help, right? A round trip would take more than 10 years. Why don't we wait for them for 10 years? With your master's name to suppress these four people, they definitely won't dare to take this child's life. Proto transmitted his voice. All right. Long Qing thought about it. This might be the best solution for today. With that in mind, Long Qing smiled at the Azure Mystic Spiritual Master and said, Then it's settled. The two of us will stay in the Southern Sea Dragon City for 10 years. I hope the four seniors can keep their promise and let us take this kid away. I'm a guest of the Taichu Chamber of Commerce, right? As long as I don't leave Bluewater Star, you have no right to detain me. Ning Qi chuckled and looked at Xing Yue. At the same time, He used his spiritual will to control the all-heaven talisman and sent a message to Apricot Blossom Drizzle. Help me. It really is him. Xing Yue looked at Ning Qi with amusement, then smiled at the Azure Mystic Spiritual Master. He's right. He's a guest of the Taichu Chamber of Commerce. Even the seniors have no right to detain him. Hearing Xing Yue's words, the immortals present couldn't help but give a thumbs up in their hearts. As expected of the Taichu Chamber of Commerce, in the face of Xianyuan Zhongtian's disciple, Long Qing, who ranked first on the ranking of mysterious immortals, they could be so unyielding. They could also be so unyielding in the face of the 4 grand immortals. This indirectly meant that it was very safe to trade with the Taichu Chamber of Commerce. At least they wouldn't sell you out right away. When the 4 grand Unity immortals heard this, they exchanged glances. They were also wary of Xing Yue's father. It would not be good for them to act forcefully today. Niece Yue, I never said that I would detain this kid. The Azure Mystic Spiritual Master said faintly. It's just that we hit it off right from the start, and I'm planning to take him in as my disciple and teach him for 10 years. Does that count as breaking the Taichu Chamber of Commerce's rules? Venerable Jiao's eyes lit up. That's right. I also find him pleasing to the eye, and I intend to take him as my disciple. Immediately after, Qi Xuezhen and Sage Qi Hao looked at each other and expressed their opinions one after another. At this point, everyone suddenly felt a little confused. How did things turn out like this? The 4 grand Unity Immortals wanted to take him as their disciple? Brother Wu, are you saying that fortune and misfortune depend on each other? Jingli stared at Ning Qi, dumbstruck. This is not considered breaking the rules, Xing Yue said with a smile. She glanced at Ning Qi with a helpless look in her eyes. The 4 grand Unity Immortals had already said so. If she intervened, even her father's name would not be able to suppress the 4 of them. If she forced the 4 of them to take Ning Qi away, then the Taichu Chamber of Commerce. This time, their reputation would be greatly affected. Very well. The Azure Mystic Spiritual Master smiled. Good disciple, kneel down and acknowledge me as your master. Venerable Jiao looked at Ning Qi. Many envious gazes fell on Ning Qi. Only a few clear-headed immortals felt that things were not so simple. Why would the 4 grand Unity Immortals suddenly accept disciples? And it was the enemy of Dragon City, the number 1 on the mysterious immortal ranking? Sorry, I already have a master. Ning Qi smiled. Are you shy? It's fine. Follow me to the cave abode in Cerulean Planet. You can take your time to acknowledge me as your master. Venerable Jiao laughed weirdly and reached out to grab Ning Qi. Wait, we haven't finished handing over that item yet. The Azure Mystic Spiritual Master suddenly said. That's true. Venerable Jiao put down his hand and smiled at Ning Qi. Let's go. Follow us. Don't get lost. After Ning Qi was led away by the 4 grand Unity Immortals, Xing Yue, and the others, everyone stood where they were for a long time before turning to leave thoughtfully. As for the Grand Luo who were killed by Dragon City, the Taichu Chamber of Commerce's guards had already come forward to collect their corpses. Let's go. We have to find a good cave abode if we're going to stay here for 10 years. Peludo smiled at Dragon City. Dragon City withdrew his gaze from Ning Qi and nodded with a smile. Not long after, the Taichu Chamber of Commerce's guards had also finished renovating the street. No one could tell that it had been attacked before. Tong Huan and the other 3 were not in a hurry to leave. Instead, they stood where they were and pondered. Darling, do you think he's that Ning Beixian from the ancestral planet? Jing Xian's voice rang in Tong Huan's ears after a while. Tong Huan nodded slowly. It could be him. I didn't expect to see not only the number 1 on the mysterious immortal ranking, but also the former number 1 on the Earth immortal ranking. But Ning Beixian's cultivation speed is a bit too terrifying. How long has it been since he was ranked number 1 on the Earth immortal ranking? And he's already a mid-stage golden immortal. Jing Xian sighed. If he had unlimited cultivation resources, it would make sense. Tong Huan's eyes turned cold. What do you mean, darling? Jing Xian was slightly stunned. The time when he rose was almost the same time when the king sent me to patrol the mountains to register. And this time, he won 2 golden pills of immortal crossing, Tong Huan said coldly. Although he did not finish his sentence, his meaning could not be more obvious. At first, they thought that the golden pills of immortal crossing were won by some senior to be given to the younger generation. But now that they thought about it, the most suspicious person should be Brother Wu, who was sitting with them. But it doesn't matter. Although he got the golden pills of immortal crossing, whether he'll be able to consume them or not will depend on his luck. Tong Huan smiled faintly, somewhat gloating. He was communicating with Jing Xian through telepathy, so Jing Li still did not know that Ning Qi might be the person who snatched the golden pills of immortal crossing. That foolish and rich person was still mumbling. I'm so envious of Brother Wu. 4 Grand Unity seniors took him as a disciple. How terrifying must his luck be to receive such treatment, Jing Li sighed. Let's go back to Tianyi Immortal Palace, Tong Huan said lightly. Ning Qi had a smile on his face and followed behind the 4 Grand Unity Immortals. He exchanged glances with Li Li from time to time. The 4 perfected cultivators of Azure Mystic had been secretly sizing Ning Qi up. They could not help but feel a bit suspicious when they saw that Ning Qi wasn't afraid at all. Perhaps they were afraid that Ning Qi would run away, so Ning Qi was also present when the 4 Grand Unity Immortals were handing over the items to Xing Yue. He watched as the 4 Grand Unity Immortals took out expensive items and Xing Yue appraised them before putting them away. Yue, we're done here. Chapter 27-23. Xing Yue nodded with a smile and took out the token. The Azure Mystic Spiritual Master and the others wanted to take it, but Daoist Jiao took it first. Daoist Jiao glanced at the 3 of them. We agreed that I would be the first to comprehend it. Did you forget? Humph. Daoist Qi snorted, but he did not refute. The Azure Mystic Spiritual Master and Qi Shuezhen looked at each other and smiled. Of course. Yue, we're leaving. If you have something good next time, remember to inform us first and let us prepare. Daoist Jiao smiled at Xing Yue. Xing Yue nodded with a smile. After chatting for a while, Xing Yue suddenly looked at Ning Qi. Seniors, are you really going to take him as your disciple? Of course. Daoist Jiao nodded with a fake smile. Perhaps they were afraid of causing trouble, but they quickly left the island and flew toward the sea outside the South Sea Dragon City with Ning Qi. In just a few breaths, the 5 of them arrived at an area of the blue water star that was darker than the rest of the sea. Daoist Jiao looked at Ning Qi with a faint smile. Suddenly, Ning Qi felt the scene in front of him change, and he felt dizzy. The next moment, he realized that he was standing in front of a huge city gate. He stood at the gate of a huge city. This huge city was even more magnificent than the South Sea Dragon City. It was surrounded by seawater, but there were countless monsters that had taken human form and not yet taken human form going in and out. When they saw Daoist Jiao, they would respectfully salute him before leaving. Daoist Jiao, your Jiao Dragon Palace is much bigger than the South Sea Dragon City. I heard that it was rebuilt from the ruins of the South Sea Dragon King? Qi Shuezhen said with a smile. Daoist Jiao smiled. Yes, but this is only a small part of the South Sea Dragon Palace. Rumor has it that before the Great War of Immortals and Demons, the South Sea Dragon Palace was everywhere in the sea. Daoist Jiao took a deep breath and said in disbelief, You mean that the South Sea Dragon Palace was everywhere in the Blue Water Star? The dragon race doesn't call this place Blue Water Star. They usually call it the South Sea Dragon Palace. Daoist Jiao smiled. A hint of surprise flashed in Ning Qi's eyes. The Dragon Clan was indeed, as the rumors said, they loved luxury. If the South Sea Dragon Palace had not been destroyed, perhaps he would have seen the largest city in history, a city that covered the entire planet. This place should be a holy land for your race, right? Why would those dragons give it to you? Sword Master Qi looked doubtful. The current dragon tribe has already declined. Furthermore, the legacy of our flood dragon tribe is also orthodox. Why can't we live here? Venerable Flood Dragon coldly glanced at Venerable Game Master. Alright, let's go in. The Azure Mystic Spiritual Master glanced at Ning Qi and said indifferently, Flood Dragon Palace. When Ning Qi arrived at a luxurious palace, he found that there were all kinds of sea-race demonic cultivators living in the Jiao Dragon Palace. There were also some land demonic cultivators, but he didn't see a single Jiao dragon like Shinran Jiao. You're Ning Beixian. The first thing the Azure Mystic Spiritual Master said was Ning Qi's name. Qi Xuezhen and the other two looked at Ning Qi with a hint of curiosity in their eyes. Even though Ning Qi's current cultivation level was nothing to them, he had killed Jiang Wei, the prodigy of the Jiang family of the Central Empire, with a single arrow. He had also learned some godly sword technique that allowed him to defeat a Grand Luo despite being weaker than him. That was enough to make them take him seriously. Senior, you must be joking. I'm Wu Yin. How could I be the top prodigy of the ancestral planet, Ning Beixian? Ning Qi smiled. Is that so? The Azure Mystic Spiritual Master looked at Ning Qi. Don't waste your breath on him. Sage Yinzi smiled faintly, then said to Ning Qi, Do you still have the bow you used to kill Jiang Wei? What bow? Ning Qi was confused. Looks like this kid won't give up until he sees his coffin. Venerable Dragon smiled. Seniors, didn't you want to take me as your disciple? Why is that? Ning Qi was a little surprised. Humph. The Azure Mystic Spiritual Master snorted. In the next second, his palm landed on Ning Qi's head. It was so fast that Ning Qi couldn't react at all. Even if he could, he wouldn't be able to do anything. After all, he was facing a Grand Unity who was way more powerful than him. Then, Ning Qi felt a powerful divine sense rushing into his mind, giving him a headache. Just when Ning Qi thought the immortal slaying bow, the immortal slaying gourd, and the door created by the art of suppressing dragon and elephant would be discovered by the Azure Mystic Spiritual Master, he withdrew his divine sense suspiciously. He looked at the others and said, There's nothing in his mind. Not even a single Dharma treasure? Venerable Dragon and the others didn't believe him. They all went forward and searched like the Azure Mystic Spiritual Master. Ning Qi's head hurt after being searched by 4 Grand Unity cultivators with divine will. However, he was surprised to find that the 3 of them had the same doubtful expression as the Azure Mystic Spiritual Master. They couldn't see anything in his mind. If there's no Dharma treasure in his mind, then it must be hidden somewhere else. Venerable Game sneered and scanned Ning Qi with his divine will. Finally, he said to the other 3 in shock, There's not even a single universe ring. Of course, Ning Qi didn't have a universe ring, but he had a spatial bag. He suspected that even an immortal emperor wouldn't be able to detect it, let alone a Grand Unity cultivator. How could it be? The Azure Mystic Spiritual Master frowned. The 4 of them took turns to search Ning Qi with their divine will. After about 10 minutes, Qi Xuezhen looked at Ning Qi with a faint smile and said, Kid, you don't have any Dharma treasure in your mind, and you don't have a universe ring on you. Could it be that you've cultivated to the mid-stage of the golden immortal realm and never used any techniques? Treasures and universe rings? This is the first time I've seen an immortal who's all alone like you. You must have hidden yourself after the Immortal Ascension Assembly, right? Venerable Dragon said coldly. Tell me now, or I'll search your soul. Not only will you become a lunatic, but you won't be able to hide anything from us. Venerable Game shouted at Ning Qi. If I become a lunatic, I don't think Xianyuan Zhongtian will let you go, right? It won't be easy for you to explain to the Taichu Chamber of Commerce, right? Ning Qi said with a faint smile. You dare to threaten us? The Azure Mystic's spiritual master's voice turned cold. That's right, I dare to threaten you. Ning Qi smiled and nodded. The four of them looked at each other suspiciously. Then, Qi Xuezhen suddenly said, I heard that 2 big shots are looking for you. Do you know about this? Chapter 27-24. Damn it! Ning Qi's attitude angered Perfected Taoist Qi, but Perfected Taoist Jiao calmed down. Do you believe that I will kill you right now? Perfected Taoist Qi stared at Ning Qi, his body emitting a majestic power of the great Tao. A normal golden immortal would have to kneel down under such pressure, but Ning Qi only took a step back and smiled at Perfected Taoist Qi. Don't scare me, I grew up scared. If you dare kill me, then die with me. I think I've made a profit. 4 grand unity immortals will die with me. You. Perfected Taoist Qi, calm down. This kid has a strange background. He knows the names of those 2, so he must have been in contact with them before. The 3 of them tried to persuade him through voice transmission. Perfected Taoist Qi's face turned pale, but he managed to suppress his anger. He snorted and stopped talking. Even those 2 want to capture this kid alive. He must have some kind of shocking secret on him. Yi Zichen thought to himself. Why don't we hand him over to those 2? No. Are you going to face Xianyuan Zhongtian's pursuit? Even if the 4 of us work together, we won't be able to withstand a single attack from him. The top 3 on the Tai True Immortal list are all qualified to become Immortal Lords. Perfected Taoist Jiao said with a serious look. Although they were Grand Unity Immortals like Xianyuan Zhongtian, Grand Unity was divided into 4 small realms, and they were only early-stage Grand Unity Immortals. They might not even be able to defeat a mid-stage Grand Unity Immortal, let alone Xianyuan Zhongtian, who was ranked 2nd on the Tai True Immortal list. If they provoked Xianyuan Zhongtian, the 4 of them would be no different from those human immortals. Xianyuan Zhongtian could easily kill them with 1 move. I can't kill him, and I'm not willing to let him go. Perfected Taoist Qing Xian glanced at Ning Qi coldly. How about this? Since we have 10 years, which is neither long nor short, let's take advantage of these 10 years to see if we can get anything out of them. At that time, we won't offend Xianyuan Zhongtian or those 2. How about it? Perfected Taoist Jiao suggested. Qi Xuezhen and Perfected Taoist Qing Xian hesitated for a while, then nodded in agreement. Perfected Taoist Qi was unwilling. No. The 3 of them shook their heads firmly. Since even you don't agree, then I won't say anything else. Do whatever you want to do. Spiritual Master Qi glanced at the Azure Mystic Spiritual Master. The Azure Mystic Spiritual Master's expression changed slightly. He clearly knew what Ning Qi meant. Although he wanted to kill Ning Qi to avenge Li Si's vengeance wasn't that important in the grand scheme of things. Taoist Jiao called a mysterious immortal-level beast cultivator and told him to follow Ning Qi at all times. He arranged a room for Ning Qi. As for the matter of him becoming Ning Qi's disciple, the 4 of them naturally didn't mention it. It was just an excuse, and Ning Qi was someone that the 2 of them wanted to capture alive. Who would dare to take him as a disciple? This room is not bad. Ning Qi followed the beast cultivator into the room and couldn't help but sigh. Although it was only an underwater palace, the place he was standing at was dozens of feet high. At a glance, he could see countless schools of fish swimming in the distance. Some sea beasts would emit a faint light from their bodies, as if they were passing shadows. It was pleasing to the eye. The beast cultivator had already transformed. Normal immortals wouldn't be able to tell what he was, but Ning Qi was different. He could see the beast cultivator's element directly. It was a crab spirit, and its blood energy was much stronger than the other mysterious immortals he had seen. The ancestral patriarch told me that you can stay here for the time being. I'll stay at the door. If you need anything, just tell me. However, your activity is limited to this room. If you step out of the door, I won't go easy on you," the crab spirit said while looking at Ningqi coldly. There seemed to be a trace of hatred in his eyes. Ningqi was sure that there was no enmity between him and the crab spirit, so the crab spirit must hate all humans. "Hee, the battle status has been refreshed again." Ningqi's eyes flashed with mockery. Then, he waved his hand at the crab spirit. "Get out. Don't step into the room without my permission. Otherwise, I won't go easy on you." "You." The crab spirit was furious. "What about me? Even your ancestral patriarch doesn't dare to touch me." "Do you dare to touch me?" Ningqi said coldly. "Hee," the crab spirit laughed coldly and turned to leave. However, Ningqi could sense that he did not go far. He was just standing at the door. If the crab spirit had not shown hostility toward him, Ningqi's battle status would have been refreshed and he would have been able to enter the top-notch cultivation training ground. He could already imagine the expressions of perfected Jiao and the others when they could not find him. Ningqi walked to the window and stood with his hands behind his back, admiring the beautiful scenery outside. Time passed. Soon, 14 to 16 hours had passed. Ningqi would be able to leave his battle status and enter the top-notch cultivation training ground soon. "You look very calm." Qi Xuezhen's voice was heard behind Ningqi. Ningqi realized that his battle status had been refreshed again. "Senior, what's the matter?" Ningqi smiled and turned to look at Qi Xuezhen. "You know that we won't kill you. That's why you're so calm, right?" Qi Xuezhen said with a smile. "I think so." Ningqi smiled and nodded. "Do you know that we Grand Unity Immortals have many methods that can make you not die but also make you want to die?" Qi Xuezhen smiled. "Senior, are you talking about living a life worse than death? I've experienced this feeling many times. Why don't you give it a try?" Ningqi smiled. Qi Xuezhen's eyes flickered slightly. "Hand over the bow and give me a copy of the sword technique that you practice. Then, tell me why those two want to capture you alive. I'll make the decision to let you leave this place in advance. How about that? With my help, those people on the mysterious immortal list won't be able to detect you. Otherwise, you won't be able to escape from those two even if we want to hand you over 10 years later." "What bow? What sword technique?" Ningqi smiled and said, "I don't know. However, if you want to know why those two want to capture me, I can tell you a secret." "Tell me." Qi Xuezhen squinted her eyes slightly, but her emotions were clearly fluctuating. "I still can't tell you. If I tell you, I'm afraid that you won't be able to escape death even with your cultivation." Ningqi suddenly shook his head. A fierce glint flashed in Qi Xuezhen's eyes as she pointed at Ningqi gently. A red light that was like a spirit snake instantly entered Ningqi's body and swept through his meridians, continuously devouring the immortal spirit Qi in his body. It tore at Ningqi's meridians. Chapter 27-25. Does it hurt? Qi Xuezhen looked at Ningqi with a faint smile. However, when she saw that Ningqi was enduring the pain and sweating profusely, he could still stand on the spot and show her a hateful smile. Her expression changed slightly. She raised her hand and pointed again. A red spiritual snake entered Ningqi's body again. At this moment, the two red spiritual snakes were moving back and forth in Ningqi's body, frantically biting his meridians and devouring the immortal Qi. Ningqi felt a bone-deep pain. As expected of a primordial unity, Ningqi shivered as he thought to himself. Sweat kept gushing out of his pores, and the Qi and blood in his body were boiling. Before long, the sweat that flowed out had a trace of bright red color. Pain. Very painful. Very painful. Ningqi had never experienced this kind of pain before. Even in those moments of life and death, when he was about to be beaten to death, it was not as painful as this. However, as long as it was not life-threatening, no matter how painful it was, Ning Chi's will would not be easily shaken. He grinned at Qi Xuezhen, and a cigarette suddenly appeared in his palm. He slowly put it in his mouth, and with a light puff, the cigarette was lit. Even the endless seawater around them couldn't extinguish the cigarette. Just like on land, a faint smoke curled up from the cigarette. Ning Qi took a deep puff, and then blew out a smoke ring. He smiled at Qi Xuezhen and said, "I haven't smoked for a long time." Qi Xuezhen seemed to be very sensitive to the smell of smoke. She frowned and snatched the cigarette from Ning Qi's hand. After analyzing the composition of the cigarette with her spiritual will, she strangely put it out. She thought that it would be some kind of spiritual medicine that could relieve pain, but she could not see a trace of qi in the composition. Ning Qi flipped his palm, and another cigarette appeared in his mouth. "It seems that you have some kind of storage magic treasure on you, but even I can't find it," Qi Xuezhen said with a serious expression. "Maybe." Ning Qi smiled, and sweat kept seeping out of his face. Those who did not know what was going on would think that he was very hot, but Qi Xuezhen was shocked. She knew her own means very well. Even a Xian immortal should be kneeling and begging for mercy at this moment, but he could still be so indifferent. To be able to talk to her so calmly, she had never seen such willpower. "My spirit-devouring goo will constantly devour your blood, qi, immortal qi, and meridians. Apart from causing you to feel extreme pain, your cultivation will slowly decline over time. You will first become an early-stage golden immortal, then a perfected heavenly immortal, then an earthly immortal, a human immortal, and finally a true immortal. If you become immortal, we won't kill you, but we can guarantee that you'll wish you were dead." Qi Xuezhen smiled. "Don't worry, it won't come to that. If it does, you guys will definitely die." Ning Qi smiled and said. His words made Qi Xuezhen and Venerable Jiao, who were secretly observing from afar, feel that something was off. "What secrets is this kid hiding? Why are you so calm?" Sword Master Qi said in a deep voice. The blue mystic spiritual master glanced at Taoist Jiao and said in a low voice, "If those two want to capture him alive, he must have some secrets. Perhaps he has the power to directly injure people. Don't push him too hard." Directly injuring him, Venerable Jiao's eyes flickered. "Are you saying that he might have the soul of an almighty being in his body, or that he might have something extremely dangerous that even grand unity immortals like us can't resist?" "That's possible." The blue mystic spiritual master nodded. "The celestial realm is huge. Even if we are grand unity immortals, there are many things that we have never seen before. For example, who has seen his sword techniques before?" Taoist Jiao nodded thoughtfully, while Taoist Game glanced at Ning Qi's room expressionlessly. "What do you mean by that? Do you think you have the power to perish together with us?" Qi Xuezhen looked at Ning Qi coldly. "It's not perishing together. I'm not sure if I'll die, but you guys will definitely die." Ning Qi smiled. If there was really no other way out, he wouldn't mind repeating what Auntie Sword did. He would grab the demon ancestor's heart and obtain power from it. Then, Qi Xuezhen and the others would definitely die. However, Ning Qi couldn't control what would happen after that. After all, the demon ancestor's heart was something left behind by a fourth step Almighty. With Ning Qi's current cultivation, using it would be like a child playing with a big knife. He would hurt others and himself. "You're still so stubborn," Qi Xuezhen sneered. She raised her hand, but her eyes moved slightly. She put her hand down and sneered at Ning Qi. "Enjoy the soul-eating goo slowly." Then, she turned around and left. At the same time, the conversation between her and the crab spirit could be heard. "Watch him. Don't leave this place." "Yes." Soon, Qi Xuezhen and Taoist Jiao appeared in a palace. She looked at the three of them gloomily and said, "This kid's willpower is strong, but my soul-eating goo is stronger. With a few more of them, he won't be able to withstand it. Why are you stopping me?" Taoist Jiao told them about their guesses and smiled. Anyway, we have 10 years to try. Now that we have the Celestial Lord token, we should avoid unnecessary trouble. In the worst-case scenario, we just have to hand him over after 10 years and let him study the Celestial Lord token. It won't be a big loss. Let him suffer for 3 days and 3 nights. Then, take back the soul-eating goo. The Qingxian spiritual master smiled. 3 days and 3 nights? I'm afraid he won't even last 2 days. Aren't you afraid he'll go crazy? Qi Shuezhen sneered. She seemed to be unhappy that the Qingxian spiritual master looked down on her soul-eating goo. How about we make a bet to see how long he can last? I've heard about your soul-eating goo. I heard that an early-stage primordial unity was accidentally hit by your soul-eating goo. In the end, he only lasted for 8 days before he knelt and begged for mercy. It was a hot topic back then. Daoist Qi, if this kid goes crazy, just take back the soul-eating goo. The Qingxian spiritual master smiled faintly. Qi Shuezhen and the other 2 agreed to this suggestion. The 4 of them just sat in the palace and used their divine senses to observe Ning Qi, who was enduring the pain in the distance. Ning Qi sat cross-legged on the ground. As time passed, the sweat coming out of his pores was no different from blood. The celestial qi in his body was constantly being consumed. Even if he mobilized all the celestial qi in his body to block the 2 soul-eating goo, it would only increase. Chapter 27-26. Time passed day by day. Ning Qi had almost turned into a bloody man. The pain made his expression a little distorted, but from the beginning to the end, Ning Qi didn't make a sound. He still maintained his cross-legged posture. His realm was already somewhat unstable. He had just broken through to the intermediate golden immortal realm not long ago. Now that the 2 spirit-eating goo were wreaking havoc in his body, the celestial qi was much lesser. His realm would definitely drop in a few more days. His demonic cultivation was also affected. The spirit-eating goo not only ate the celestial qi, but it also devoured qi and blood. According to the methods of primordial immortals, there were countless ways to turn a gold immortal into a mortal in an instant. However, Qi Shuezhen's method excelled in torment, using a painful and slow method to allow the spirit-eating parasites to nibble away at the other party. That way, it was easier to break the other party's will and obtain what she wanted. It was very effective. During this time, the crab spirit opened the door and looked inside. He saw Ning Qi's body was blood-red and his face was twisted, as if he was resisting an extremely horrible pain. A trace of schadenfreude flashed in his eyes. It's the 9th day, Perfected Master Hao's tone was serious. Perfected Master Jiao and the Azure Mystic Spiritual Master looked at each other. Perfected Master Hao sighed. I didn't expect this kid's will to be this strong. Even an early-stage primordial immortal can't compare to him. No wonder those 2 wanted to capture him alive. He has a lot of secrets. Qi Shuezhen seemed to be shocked that Ning Qi could last so long under her spirit-eating goo. She was also a bit angry, but she didn't say anything. I received another piece of news recently. The Azure Mystic Spiritual Master said slowly. What news? Perfected Master Hao asked curiously. Qi Shuezhen and Perfected Master Jiao also looked at the Azure Mystic Spiritual Master. According to the news, when Ning Beixian underwent the Immortal Bone Tribulation, the Heavenly Tao sent 13 Immortal Bone Tribulations. The Azure Mystic Spiritual Master said with a strange expression. 13 Immortal Bone Tribulations? Wei Gongqi only underwent 12 Immortal Bone Tribulations, yet he's already the first on the Golden Immortal list. You and I were all weaker than him when we were young, yet this kid underwent 13 Immortal Bone Tribulations? That's ridiculous. I'm afraid there's something wrong with your news. Perfected Master Jiao said. It might not be fake news. I once obtained a jade slip that recorded some tales from the primordial era. It said that a long, long time ago, when this world was ruled by the ancient immortal clan, there were some existences who passed the 13 immortal bone tribulations. The Jade Slip listed 2 of them. One of them was a Buddhist cultivator, while the other was a Taoist cultivator. However, the latter eventually became a Buddhist. It's probably made up by our predecessors. The 3 of them fell silent for a moment before Spiritual Master Qi sneered. That's right. We've seen a lot of groundless news over the years. Taoist Jiao nodded slowly. Perhaps it was fabricated by the Buddhist cultivators to persuade people to cultivate in Buddhism. Ever since the Great War of Immortals and Demons, there are no more true Buddhas in this world. There are very few cultivators in the immortal realm who cultivate in Buddhist technique. The strongest is only a primordial immortal. There are so many immortal monarchs, but none of them cultivate in Buddhism. Qi Xuezhen said lightly. I might be old, but I can't be wrong about the age of the Jade Slip. It was definitely not made after the Great War of Immortals and Demons, but before it. Rather than saying that it's advising people to cultivate in Buddhism, it's better to say that it's advising demons to cultivate in Buddhism. That Taoist cultivator was originally a demon, a monkey demon. The Jade Slip said that after he passed the 13 immortal bone tribulations, he soared to the sky and killed all the gods and Buddhas. At some point in time, all the cultivators in the immortal realm were terrified of him. Even the ancient immortal clan couldn't do anything to him. We're not talking about the primordial era now. No matter how strong they were, they all turned to dust and entered the reincarnation cycle. We're only talking about this kid. Countless immortals saw him pass the immortal bone tribulations. That disciple of mine has quite a high status on the ancestral planet, but no one knows his true identity. His real identity and information can't be wrong. You're saying that since we offended him this time, we have to eliminate him? If that's the case, how are we going to explain it to Xianyuan Zhongtian? How are we going to explain it to the 2 of them? The Tao Master of Game frowned. That's why I want you guys to think of a way that satisfies both sides. I don't want to be killed by a junior one day, the Tao Master of Game said lightly. I don't think he's going to live for long. I don't think he'll live for long. Once those 2 obtain his secrets, they won't let him live. You and I don't need to think about this. We just need to think about how to get some valuable information from him in the next 10 years. The Tao Master waved his hand and looked at Qi Xuezhen. Take back the spirit-eating goo. He's already at his limit after enduring for 9 days as a mid-stage golden immortal. He'll go crazy if we keep tormenting him. Qi Xuezhen snorted and moved her mind. 2 rays of red light flew out of Ning Qi's body and returned to Qi Xuezhen's body. Ning Qi's expression relaxed and he let out a long breath. If the Tao Master of Game didn't take back the spirit-eating goo, he wouldn't be able to resist taking out the demon ancestor's heart and starting a massacre in 2 days at most. Thank you, Senior, for your careful guidance this time. It has allowed my will to become more stable. Ning Qi slowly stood up. His body shook slightly, and the scabs on his body disappeared. His eyes were bright, and it was impossible to tell that he was tortured by the spirit-eating goo. He cupped his hands and smiled at Qi Xuezhen and the others. Then, he shouted at the crab spirit at the door, I want some tea. Bring it over immediately. The crab spirit's face darkened when he heard Ning Qi's voice. If the 2 of them didn't want to capture this kid alive, I would really want to take him as my disciple. The Tao Master of Game retracted his mind. Taking a disciple like this is just inviting disaster. I'm afraid even the providence of your serpent dragon race won't be able to suppress him. The Azure Mystic's spiritual master smiled. Who knows if it's a blessing or a curse? However, I do like this kid's temper. What a pity, what a pity. I'm going to comprehend the Immortal Lord token. You guys protect me. Tao Master Dragon touched his bald head and sighed. He stood up and smiled at the 3 of them before walking out of the palace. The 3 of them immediately followed him. It was more important to look after the immortal Lord Token. As for Ning-Chi, they believed that he wouldn't be able to leave the Serpent Dragon Palace with the crab spirit watching over him. However, they soon regretted it. Yes. Chapter 27. 24 hours passed in the blink of an eye, and Ning-Chi's tea became tasteless. System, I want to enter the top cultivation training ground. Ning-Chi's lips curled up. The next moment, his figure suddenly disappeared on the spot. The crab spirit immediately rushed into the room, and looked at the empty room with a dumbfounded expression. Where is he? The crab spirit couldn't believe it. He was the supervisor of the Jiao Dragon Palace, and he was assigned to watch over Ning-Chi. He was a peak Xian celestial, and he was the strongest demon cultivator in the Jiao Dragon Palace, aside from Taoist Jiao. How could a mid-stage golden celestial human just disappear like that? The crab spirit didn't chase outside at all, because he was sure that Ning-Chi had disappeared into this room, and hadn't escaped outside. A trace of panic flashed through the crab spirit's eyes. Master Jiao had specifically ordered him to keep an eye on Ning-Chi. Although he didn't know the specific reason, Ning-Chi's importance didn't need to be mentioned. Now that Ning-Chi had suddenly disappeared from his watch, he had to take responsibility for it. After a few breaths, the four Tai arrived one after another. They looked at the scene in front of them and looked at the crab spirit. Where is he? Venerable Jiao said calmly. Although his voice was calm, there was a hint of anger in his tone that was difficult to conceal. The crab spirit knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Venerable Jiao as he said, I am useless, and he escaped. Qi Xuezhen and the other two didn't look too good. They used their divine abilities and their divine senses swept in all directions in an attempt to find Ning-Chi. However, Ning-Chi seemed to have vanished into thin air, and he didn't leave any traces behind. A strange look flashed in Sage Qi's eyes. He looked at Sage Jiao thoughtfully. Taoist Jiao, let's not beat around the bush. Did you hide this kid? Do you want to keep the secret to yourself? Taoist Qingxian asked coldly. Qi Xuezhen slowly took a step back and stood next to Taoist Qingxian. She looked at Taoist Jiao coldly. Her aura was unstable, and she was ready to attack at any time. What a joke! I always keep my word. If I say we'll cooperate, then we'll cooperate. Why would I do something behind your back? I was with the three of you just now. May I ask, how did I hide this kid under your eyes? Taoist Jiao was so angry that he laughed. This is your territory. How would we know what methods you used to hide from us? Venerable Game Master said calmly. You don't trust me? Do you want me to make a heavenly Tao blood oath? Venerable Jiao said coldly. Send it. The Azure Profound Spiritual Master looked at Taoist Jiao indifferently. Qi Xuezhen and Taoist Game also looked at Taoist Jiao. Although making him swear a heavenly law blood oath would make him shed all pretenses of cordiality, Ning-Chi had suddenly disappeared. His secrets were a small matter, but what could they offer him after 10 years? To Dragon City and Proto? Not only would he have to offend Xianyuan Zhongtian, who was behind Dragon City, but how would he explain to those two? This matter was related to their lives. All right. Today, I swear a heavenly Tao blood oath that if I hide this child, let me immediately be struck to death by the lightning tribulation and fall into the cycle of reincarnation forever. Taoist Jiao glanced at the three of them, bit the tip of his tongue, and spat out a mouthful of essence blood. After swearing, the essence blood immediately turned into a strange rune and disappeared in front of everyone's eyes. The heavenly law blood oath was a relatively common method in the celestial world. Someone once said that after swearing a heavenly law blood oath, the rune formed by the essence blood was very likely to be a type of Tao talisman, which could directly communicate with the heavenly law. Therefore, even if an immortal emperor made a heavenly law blood oath, he would still be bound by the heavenly law. The restriction of the blood oath. The three of them waited for a long time, but the lightning tribulation did not descend, so they began to believe Taoist Jiao. However, they were still shocked and confused as to how Ningqi could disappear from this place. This was Taoist Jiao's dragon palace, and there were thousands of restrictive spells outside. Without Taoist Jiao's permission, even a grand unity would have to spend a lot of effort to leave this room. At the very least, he would not be able to do it quietly. Furthermore, the four grand unity immortals were in the dragon palace, so how could Ningqi suddenly disappear from under their noses? How could a mid-stage golden immortal do something like that? Furthermore, there was a peak mysterious immortal beast cultivator standing outside the door. Speak. How did he disappear? Taoist Jiao stared at the crab spirit. Crab Gu's heart was filled with endless fear. He murmured, "Ancestor, the way he disappeared. I don't know. When I sensed his movement, I entered the room. But there was no one in the room, there was no trace of him. Search. Send out all the shrimp soldiers and crab generals of the Dragon Palace, and search the entire blue water planet. Find him even if you have to dig 3 feet into the ground." Taoist Jiao roared with a murderous look in his eyes. In the following period of time, the cultivators on Cerulean Planet discovered that the surrounding seas were in a state of boiling, as if an army was passing through the waters. When they discovered this, they hurriedly gathered at Dragon City in the South Sea and exchanged information. In the end, they guessed that the flood dragon in the sea was finally. They guessed that something had happened to the Dragon Palace. What's going on? Should we go down and ask? Proto looked at the sea in front of him and frowned. Long Qing shook his head. Since we agreed to meet in 10 years, then let's do it in 10 years. What happens next has nothing to do with us. As long as they hand over the person after 10 years. At the same time, Xing Yue was also standing in the void. Lili stood behind her, looking very respectful. The Dragon Palace is making a big move. Do you think this is a coincidence? Xing Yue smiled. Lili thought for about 3 seconds and shook his head. I don't know. I don't think it's a coincidence. Xing Yue smiled. At the top-grade training ground, Ningqi took a deep breath. The air of freedom smelled so good. He had originally planned to return to the Dragon Palace in 10 years and leave with Long Qing and Xing Yue. They were only Xian immortals, so Ningqi was confident that he could escape from them. However, Qi Xuezhen had tortured him for 9 days. Ningqi remembered this grudge and was prepared to fight a long battle. He would not return to the Dragon Palace until he was satisfied at the top-grade training ground. At that time, he wanted to see how they would answer to the existence behind Long Qing. With a thought, a porcelain bottle appeared in Ningqi's hand. It contained the golden pill of crossing immortality that he had won at the Immortal Ascension gathering. After looking at it for a while, he put it away. Chapter 27-28. Ningqi had 10 million heavenly coins. He took out 1/10 of it and used it to purchase the refining materials for the primordial Tao pill. His post in the black market was constantly being replied to. This time, he did not sell any of the primordial Tao pills he refined. Instead, he consumed them himself. Refining pills, consuming pills, cultivating. Although the days were boring, Ningqi's cultivation level kept rising. On the island in the lake, Xing Yue saw Ningqi buying the materials for the primordial Tao pill in the black market. She couldn't help but send a message to Ningqi. That year apricot flower drizzle. The 4 grand unity immortals really accepted you as their disciple? Ningqi had been using the primordial Tao pill to break through the mid-stage golden immortal bottleneck and hadn't replied. He only saw the message when he finished eating the pills. King sent me to patrol the mountain. What did you say? What 4 grand unity immortals? On the island in the middle of the lake, Xing Yue's face was filled with question marks. This fellow was still playing dumb? That year apricot flower drizzle. You are Ning Beixian. You sent me a message asking for help, right? King sent me to patrol the mountain. That message was sent wrongly. How could I be Ning Beixian? Sorry, King brother, I have something urgent at hand. I can't talk anymore. After that, no matter what apricot blossom drizzle sent, Ning Qi did not reply. 4 to 5 years passed in the outside world. He stayed in the top-notch cultivation training ground for more than 1,000 years and ate countless primordial Tao pills before finally breaking through the bottleneck in front of him. Ding! Congratulations to the host for reaching the late-stage Golden Immortal. The immortal spirit Qi in his body had increased 4 to 5 times after the breakthrough. It surged into Ning Qi's 4th immortal meridian. My aptitude and comprehension have indeed improved a lot. Ning Qi sighed. Ever since he passed the immortal bone tribulation, he found that his aptitude was no longer as ordinary as before. With the help of the primordial Tao pill, it only took him 1,000 years to break through a minor realm. With his aptitude back then, it would have taken him at least 10 to 20,000 years. The further he went, the longer the time he needed. Although 10 to 20,000 years seemed very long, it was extremely fast for ordinary golden immortals. After all, the lifespan of a golden immortal was several times greater than that of a sky immortal. It wouldn't be a problem to live for at least 3 to 5 ancient eras. It was only 2 to 4 hours for mortals. After breaking through to the late golden immortal stage, Ning Qi continued to concoct pills. He had spent 1,000,000 heavenly coins to buy spiritual materials, and he still had 70 to 80% left. It was more than enough for him to break through to the great circle of the golden immortal stage. In the outside world, Ning Qi's disappearance had caused the entire Blue Water Star's sea region to boil over for a long time. It wasn't until a year ago that it gradually calmed down. The cultivators on land could only guess what was happening in the sea. There were also some rumors circulating in the South Sea Dragon City. As for whether it was true or not, everyone had their own opinions. I can't find him. There's no trace of him. In the Jiao Dragon Palace's main hall, Venerable Jiao looked at the other three with a gloomy expression. He disappeared just like that? Even if he died in the Jiao Dragon Palace, there should be bones left behind, right? How did this kid manage to do it to the extent where we can't even see his body if he's alive or dead? Sage Bo shook his head. If I had known this would happen, I would have allowed me to continue tormenting this brat. Perhaps we would have already known what we wanted to know. Qi Xuezhen snorted coldly. In another 5 years, it will be 10 years. How are we going to explain that? The Azure Mystic Spiritual Master said slowly. We'll explain it however we want. If they don't believe us, let them search for him themselves. Venerable Jiao said in a deep voice. What if Xianyuan Zhongtian doesn't believe us? Sage Bo frowned. Do you have any good suggestions? Venerable Jiao said. Everyone was silent. What good suggestions could they have at the moment? They wanted Ning Beixian. And they had lost him. Most importantly, they had lost a living person in their own territory. As long as they couldn't hand over the person they wanted, they wouldn't be able to get away with this easily. I think we should leave this place first, Sage Bo said. Sage Bo nodded. That's right. Instead of waiting for death, why don't we find a secret place to study the Immortal Lord token? If we succeed, we might be able to defeat Xianyuan Zhongtian in the future. No! The Azure Mystic Spiritual Master and Venerable Jiao said at the same time. The Azure Mystic Spiritual Master glanced at Venerable Jiao and said to the other two, You guys can leave, but Venerable Jiao and I have big businesses. How can we leave? Then what do you think we should do? Speaking of which, if you didn't want to keep this kid, there wouldn't be so many problems today. Sage Bo said with dissatisfaction. You agreed to the decision back then. Otherwise, you could have spoken up to stop me. Given your cultivation base as Adept Game Master, I would have given you face. The Azure Mystic Spiritual Master said sarcastically. Alright, stop arguing. There's no point in arguing. I think we should wait for another 4 or 5 years. If we still can't find this kid, we'll just tell the truth. At the very least, we still have the Immortal Lord token. Sage Bo said. What do you mean? The three of them were startled. If Xianyuan Zhongtian doesn't let us go, we can use the Immortal Lord token to apologize. At least we can keep our lives. At this moment, don't tell me you want money over your life? Sage Bo said as he glanced at the three of them. The three of them were silent for a while and finally nodded. This was the only way. Although Qi Xuezhen and Sage Bo were alone and had nothing to worry about, they didn't dare to leave Blue Water Star. If Sage Bo and Sage Bo framed them, they wouldn't be able to wash themselves clean even if they jumped into the Yellow River. He cleared his throat. 4 to 5 years passed by quickly. On this day, Proto and Longqing soared into the sky and stood in the void, looking indifferently at the sea region where the Jiao Dragon Palace was located. About 2 hours later, 4 figures rose from the sea and stood facing the two of them. The two of us greet the 4 seniors. Longqing and Proto first bowed respectfully. Then, they looked around and discovered that Ning Qi was not with the 4 of them. Their hearts suddenly thumped, and they had a bad feeling. Senior, where is he? Longqing smiled. The 4 of them were silent for a while, then Venerable Jiao said, He's gone. Gone? Longqing and Proto were shocked when they heard this. Then, anger appeared on Proto's face as he said, Senior, you said you would hand him over to us in 10 years. How can you go back on your word? He did not believe that Ning Qi could escape from under the noses of the 4 Grand Unity Immortals, so he assumed that Venerable Dragon and the other 3 Grand Unity Immortals were just making excuses for not handing Ning Qi over. Chapter 27-29. A few years ago there was a disturbance in the sea. You should have sensed it, right? Venerable Jiao asked slowly. If it wasn't for their guilty conscience, they wouldn't have obediently explained anything to a Peak Xian immortal. We sensed it. Senior, are you saying that the disturbance in the sea has something to do with his disappearance? Longqing was slightly shocked. During those years, the entire Cerulean planet's sea region had been acting strangely. He and Proto had seen that there were countless prawn soldiers and crab generals beneath the sea region, seemingly searching for something. The two of them had even guessed what it was that would make Taoist Jiao so nervous that he would send out the entire Jiao Dragon Palace's forces. If it wasn't for the 4 Grand Unities' deterrence, other immortals would have long since sneaked into the sea to find out what was going on. However, from what Venerable Jiao said, it seemed that the disturbance had something to do with Ning Qi. Longqing couldn't help but feel shocked. That's right. Back then, my subordinates almost turned the entire Cerulean Stars Sea upside down, but they still couldn't find that kid. Venerable Jiao nodded. That's a terrible excuse. How could a mere mid-stage golden immortal escape from you? Proto couldn't help but shout angrily. Kid, don't push your luck. If we didn't lose him, do you think the 4 of us would have the patience to explain things to you 2 Xian immortals? Venerable Jiao looked at Proto. Seniors, did you really lose him? Longqing asked in a deep voice. Yes. The 4 of them nodded. Even seniors can't find him? Longqing's tone was a little strange. We can't find him. The 4 of them shook their heads. All right, the 2 of us understand. Longqing smiled and nodded. He didn't bow or greet them. Instead, he gave Proto a look and turned to leave. Proto sneered, looked at the 4 of them, and left with Longqing. The 4 Grand Unities watched as they disappeared from their sight. After a while, Venerable Jiao's voice sounded again. They'll go find Xianyuan Zhongtian, right? Probably. Venerable Jiao nodded slowly. Then we have to be prepared. Dao Master Game sighed. Several more months passed. On this day, the cultivators of the South Sea Dragon City were meditating, but they suddenly noticed something. They got up and walked out of the cave. Looking at the sky, the originally clear sky had undergone a great change. Dark clouds gathered and covered the entire planet. Only the South Sea Dragon City remained sunny in the seas of the blue water star. What happened? Everyone was a little confused, but their hearts throbbed. On the island at the center of the lake, Xing Yue and Li Li rose into the air, staring at the scene before them. Not long after, the guards and elders of the Taichu Chamber of Commerce arrived behind the two, their expressions somewhat serious. "Young mistress, I'm afraid there's a mighty figure coming," Li Li said solemnly. Xing Yue nodded. "That's possible. However, that expert's target should be the Serpent Dragon Palace. It has nothing to do with the South Sea Dragon City. Let's not interfere and just watch." Li Li immediately ordered all the members of the Taichu Chamber of Commerce to hurry back to the island at the center of the lake. At the same time, many immortals cultivating on the islands also rose into the air, using all their strength to leave the seas as fast as they could and return to the South Sea Dragon City. After arriving at the South Sea Dragon City, they looked up angrily, not knowing what had happened. Venerable Jiao and the other three were meditating in the Serpent Dragon Palace. When the dark clouds appeared, the four of them immediately sensed it. However, before they could react, the dark clouds that covered the sea flashed with lightning, and bolts of golden lightning struck deep into the sea. Almost no sea was spared. The entire sea of the blue water star was ravaged by lightning. Very soon, the immortals who had escaped the calamity in the South Sea Dragon City were shocked to see countless corpses floating out of the sea. Without exception, these corpses were all scorched black and emitting white smoke. Hiss! Everyone looked at the sea that was ravaged by lightning and the corpses that floated out of the sea. They could not help but gasp. This was clearly the work of a powerful expert to deal with the Serpent Dragon Palace. The lightning disappeared as quickly as it came. It only lasted for about 10 breaths of time before the dark clouds in the sky gradually dispersed. However, a large portion of the cerulean star's sea region had evaporated, and countless Sea Clan and Yao cultivators had died. In the depths of the sea that no one could see, the originally luxurious Serpent Dragon Palace had already been reduced to ruins. Venerable Jiao and the other three stood together in a sorry state. Their bodies were covered with wounds caused by the lightning. Behind Venerable Jiao, the puppet that he had spent a lot of money to buy was also destroyed. The crab spirit, who was a Xian immortal at the great perfection stage, was lying lifelessly on the ground. At the moment, he was exhaling more than he was inhaling. The corpses of the sea race and demon cultivators were all around, and they were continuously floating up. So powerful, a look of horror flashed in Qi Xuezhen's eyes. The other party had destroyed the entire Serpent Dragon Palace with just one move. Countless soldiers and crab generals had died, and even the four of them had suffered serious injuries. Let's go. This is just Xianyuan Zhongtian trying to intimidate us. If he really wanted to kill us, we would have already become corpses. Venerable Jiao's face was ashen. After saying this, he roared and turned into a long serpent in front of the three of them. He broke out of the sea and flew into the sky. When Qi Xuezhen and the other two saw this, they looked at each other. Their bodies moved slightly, and they left the sea and appeared in the sky. If it was a blessing, it would not be a curse. If it was a curse, they could not avoid it. Since the opponent was already here, they could only go out and face him. Even if they escaped, they could not escape. When the people from the Dragon City of the South Sea saw Venerable Jiao's true form, they were shocked. This was the first time they had seen Venerable Jiao reveal his true form. When a demon cultivator revealed his true form, there were only two reasons. Either he was severely injured and could not maintain his human form, or he had encountered a strong enemy and was in his strongest state. To face him, no matter which one it was enough to make the immortals on the land feel terrified. A battle between primordial unity experts like this was enough to make them suffer. Perhaps all of them would be buried here today. At this moment, two figures broke through the sky. Long Qing respectfully bowed to the sky and said, "Disciple welcomes Master." "So it's Xianyuan Zhongtian." Xing Yue suddenly understood and was no longer so nervous. Xianyuan Zhongtian did not include the island in his attack, which was enough to show that he was only targeting the Serpent Dragon Palace and not the Taichu Chamber of Commerce. That's Long Qing, the number 1 on the mysterious immortal list. His master? Was it Senior Xianyuan who attacked just now? Chapter 2730. Is that Xianyuan Zhongtian, who is ranked second on the Tai True Immortal list? Everyone looked at the white figure with excitement in their eyes. At the same time, they were a bit worried. They didn't know why Xianyuan Zhongtian would suddenly come to Cerulean Planet and attack the Jiao Dragon Palace. Brother Xianyuan. The Azure Profound Spiritual Master cupped his hands and was about to speak when he saw Xianyuan Zhongtian gently pointing at Spiritual Master Jiao. The next moment, a majestic power of the Great Tao appeared out of nowhere and bombarded Spiritual Master Jiao's body. Spiritual Master Jiao let out a painful roar and turned back into his human form. His face was a bit pale, but there was a clear fingerprint on his bald head. The Azure Profound Spiritual Master's words were interrupted. "Okay, you can speak now." Xianyuan Zhongtian glanced at Spiritual Master Jiao and said. Paluto looked at the 4 Tai Immortals in front of him with a strange smile. Spiritual Master Jiao was a bit scared. Qi Shuezhen and the other 2 also had a deeper understanding of Xianyuan Zhongtian's method. Xianyuan Zhongtian destroyed Spiritual Master Jiao's true body with just a finger, forcing him to turn back into his human form. If he wanted to kill the 4 of them, he could do it in the blink of an eye. He could do it. Brother Xianyuan is indeed worthy of being ranked second on the Tai True Immortal list. We are ashamed of our inferiority. This is a long story. Spiritual Master Jiao cupped his hands. Then let's make it short. Xianyuan Zhongtian said calmly. Sage Jiao's expression changed slightly. He told them everything that had happened in a low voice. After Long Qing and Proto heard it, their expressions became a bit strange. What Xianyuan Zhongtian had said was exactly the same as before. Could it be that even Xianyuan Zhongtian had personally come to Bluewater Planet and they still wanted to protect that brat? After the cultivators of South Sea Dragon City heard Taoist Jiao's explanation to Xianyuan Zhongtian, they all gasped and had strange expressions. They now had some understanding of what had happened today. Most people thought that Taoist Jiao and the others had taken a liking to Ning Qi's potential, which was why they had accepted Ning Qi as a disciple more than 10 years ago. However, it seemed that this was not the case at all. Instead, a mid-stage golden immortal had escaped from the Jiao Dragon Palace. The realm was just to find an intermediate golden immortal? Most importantly, that mid-stage golden immortal was someone Xianyuan Zhongtian wanted. Because Taoist Jiao and the others couldn't hand over that guy, Xianyuan Zhongtian gave them a big gift. As soon as he arrived at Cerulean Water Star, there were more than 1 million corpses floating in the sea. It was estimated that the entire Jiao Dragon Palace had most of the sea clans and demon cultivators were dead. If Taoist Jiao and the others don't hand over that brat, won't they die here today? What is the identity of that mid-stage golden immortal? How could he alarm a world-shaking figure like Xianyuan? Fortunately, we just acted according to the situation and fled to the Dragon City of the South Sea. Otherwise, we might have been regarded as merfolk cultivators by Xianyuan and died under the heavenly thunder. Many immortals who returned to the South Sea Dragon City from the ocean thought resentfully. Xianyuan Zhongtian looked at Taoist Jiao, Qi Shuezhen, the Azure Mystic Spiritual Master, and Taoist Qi. After a few breaths of silence, he slowly said, "You're saying that a mid-stage golden immortal escaped from the Jiao Dragon Palace right under your noses?" "That's right," Taoist Jiao laughed bitterly. I've already ordered my subordinates to look for him in the sea. I've searched every corner at least 3 times, but I couldn't find any traces of him. The other 3 agreed. At this moment, they had to let Xianyuan Zhongtian know that they had no intention of hiding Ning Qi. All right, it doesn't seem like you're lying to me. Xianyuan Zhongtian nodded slowly. Master? Longqing looked at Xianyuan Zhongtian with some surprise, while Proto's expression didn't look too good either. Were they just going to let this matter go like this? Venerable Jiao and the other 3 were pleasantly surprised. They quickly cupped their hands and said, Brother Xianyuan is wise. Although the Jiao Dragon Palace had suffered heavy losses this time and would need at least 1,000,000 years to recover, this loss was still acceptable as long as it could save its life. However, back then, since Longqing wanted to take this child away, why did you leave him here for 10 years? Didn't they say my name? Xianyuan Zhongtian's tone changed as he asked curiously. When the 4 of them heard this, their expressions immediately became somewhat awkward. Could it be that they also wanted to know Ning Qi's secrets? Did they want to stop halfway? If they said that, the 4 of them would probably be killed by Xianyuan Zhongtian immediately. Seeing that the 4 of them were silent, Xianyuan Zhongtian smiled and said, If you don't have a reasonable explanation, you don't need to live anymore. Don't need to live anymore? The immortals in the South Sea Dragon City looked at Xianyuan Zhongtian with reverence and envy. When would they be able to reach this level and demand the life of a grand unity? Actually, this child is Ning Beixian from the ancestral star. He killed my son. We were careless this time and allowed him to escape. Please forgive us, Brother Xianyuan. The Azure Mystic Spiritual Master suddenly said, and cupped his hands at Xianyuan Zhongtian. The other 3 were happy to see this. Right, this was also an excuse. When the immortals of the South Sea Dragon City heard the name Ning Beixian, they were all shocked, including Li Li, who was standing behind Xingyue. Ning Beixian, Wu Yin, the king sent me to patrol the mountain. Xingyue's eyes flashed with a smile. You're the Mansion Lord of the Azure Mystic Spiritual Master, right? Xianyuan Zhongtian said indifferently. That's me. The Azure Mystic Spiritual Master lowered his head even more. Your son, Li Si, did die in the Xianjian sect with my second disciple. I accept this reason, but you've ruined my business. How should I solve this? Xianyuan Zhongtian smiled. Second disciple? The 4 Grand Unity Immortals, including the Azure Mystic Spiritual Master, were shocked and suddenly felt regret. If they knew that the Grand Luo who died with Li Si was Xianyuan Zhongtian's second disciple, they wouldn't have dared to let Ning Qi stay. Although he was shocked, Daoist Jiao reacted quickly. After hesitating for a while, he took out the incomplete Immortal Lord token and handed it to Xianyuan Zhongtian with both hands. We don't have anything else with us because of this incomplete Immortal Lord token, so we can only use this token to apologize, Daoist Jiao said in a low voice. The other 3 felt like their hearts were bleeding, but at this moment, they would definitely die if they didn't extinguish Xianyuan Zhongtian's anger. For their lives, they could abandon everything, even the Immortal Lord token, which cost them almost all of their wealth. Chapter 2731. An Immortal Lord Token? I never thought there would really be an Immortal Lord token in this Celestial Ascension gathering. I thought those guys were just boasting. This is a top-grade doctrine artifact. Using this to make amends is really... I heard that it's an incomplete Immortal Lord token. It's only a high-grade doctrine artifact. Even if it's incomplete, it's still an Immortal Lord token. Its previous owner was an Immortal Lord. The Taichu Chamber of Commerce is too powerful. They can even take out an Immortal Lord token. Dragon City in the South Sea was in an uproar. Countless gazes fell on the Immortal Lord token. Their gazes were filled with passion, desire, envy, and shock. An incomplete Immortal Lord token? This. Paluto and Dragon City looked at each other in shock. They suddenly believed what Venerable Jiao and the others had said. If they had taken out such a precious treasure to make amends, it was impossible for them to hide Ning Qi. Compared to the Immortal Lord token, Ning Qi's value was not that high. These four have lost a lot. Xing Yue's lips curled up. Her eyes revealed a hint of schadenfreude. Only she knew how much Venerable Jiao and the others had paid for this incomplete Immortal Lord token. Interesting. Although it's incomplete, it is indeed an Immortal Lord token. Xianyuan Zhongtian smiled faintly as he put away the Immortal Lord token and looked at Venerable Jiao and the others. The four of us won this item at the Celestial Ascension Gathering. It is definitely not fake. Venerable Jiao smiled bitterly. Okay, this time I really believe that you did not hide the little guy. However, if you find out where the little guy is in the future, remember to inform me first. Xianyuan Zhongtian smiled. Of course. The four of them hurriedly nodded and heaved a sigh of relief. Although they had suffered heavy losses, at least their lives were saved. Xianyuan Zhongtian smiled, turned around, and walked away. That's it? Disappointment flashed in Paluto's eyes, but he understood that the Immortal Lord token was enough to make amends. Let's go, Long Qing said calmly. After saying this, he immediately chased after Xianyuan Zhongtian. Seeing this, Proto also turned and left. After the three of them left Cerulean Star, the immortals of the Dragon City of the South Sea heaved a sigh of relief. Although they were not Xianyuan Zhongtian's target for coming to Cerulean Star, they were still afraid that they would be affected by the aftermath of the battle. In a battle between primordial immortals, only existences above the Xian immortal level would be affected. Even a Grand Luo's life would be at risk. I've finally sent the God of Plagues away. The price I paid was a little too high. Sage Qi swept his gaze across the sea of floating corpses. With a slight movement of his body, he transformed into a stream of light and left Bluewater Star. Goodbye. Qi Xuezhen also cupped her hands and left. The blue profound spiritual master glanced at Daoist Jiao and didn't say anything. He then left in another direction. In the blink of an eye, 3 of the 4 Grand Unity Sovereigns had left. Ning Qi had disappeared, and the Immortal Lord token had been lost. There was no need for them to stay on Cerulean Water Star. The mess of the Serpent Dragon Palace would naturally be left to Daoist Jiao to solve. You're quite fast. Daoist Jiao sneered at himself. Then, many figures quietly emerged from the sea. However, they weren't corpses. Instead, they were sea-race demonic cultivators who were lucky enough to survive. They only dared to show themselves after making sure that Xianyuan Zhongtian had left. At this moment, they all looked at Daoist Jiao with fear in their eyes. What are you looking at? Clean up the corpses. I'll give you 3 days. After 3 days, I want to see this place restored to its original state, including my Serpent Dragon Palace. Daoist Jiao glared at the sea-race demonic cultivators. They quickly nodded and began to clean up the floating corpses. The crab spirit endured its injuries and led a group of sea-race demonic cultivators to rebuild the destroyed Serpent Dragon Palace. Cerulean Water Star became peaceful again. However, what happened today couldn't be kept a secret. Immortals everywhere would spread the news. On the island in the middle of the lake, Xiaolan and the other ladies surrounded Healy. They were a little excited. So that Mr. Wu is Ning Beixian from the ancestral planet. He used to be the number 1 genius on the Earth deity ranking. I didn't expect this. If I knew this would happen, I would have shamelessly challenged him. Don't you think it's embarrassing? Mr. Ning wouldn't have wanted you even if you had shamelessly challenged him. Although they did not leave the island, with their Earth immortal cultivation, they had seen everything that had happened. To them, Ning Qi's fame was greater than Li Xian, who was ranked first on the Heavenly Immortal rankings, Wei Gang, who was ranked first on the Golden Immortal rankings, and even Long Qing, who was ranked first on the Xian Immortal rankings. They were much more famous. Since they were Earth deities, they naturally paid more attention to the Earth deity ranking. That was why they were so excited when they found out that Ning Qi was Ning Beixian and that they had talked to the number 1 on the Earth deity ranking. I wonder where Mr. Ning is now, Healy murmured to herself. A hint of worry flashed in her eyes. The reconstruction of the Serpent Dragon Palace took less than 3 days. Of course, the sea-race demonic cultivators could only help restore the original appearance. As for the restrictive spells that Daoist Jiao had set up, they were all destroyed by Xianyuan Zhongtian. Daoist Jiao had to set them up again. Patriarch, this puppet, the crab spirit brought the puppet that Daoist Jiao had bought from the Immortal Ascension Gathering. It was a puppet made by the ancient Mahist family. There was no sound coming from this puppet, as if it was dead. There were a few obvious burn marks on its body, which were caused by the lightning strike. It seemed that because of these few strikes, it had lost the power it should have had, and had become a piece of trash. This thing cost me 28 million divine coins, and it was destroyed by Xianyuan Zhongtian just like that. Damn it, damn it! Go to the Taichu Chamber of Commerce and find a blacksmith for me. See if he can repair it. Daoist Jiao's eyes flashed with anger as he gnashed his teeth. I'll go now. But this puppet, the crab spirit looked at Daoist Jiao carefully. Put it somewhere I can't see. I don't want to be annoyed. Daoist Jiao snorted coldly, turned around and left. The crab spirit pondered for a while. Suddenly, his gaze fell on a pavilion that had just been repaired. He grabbed the puppet and walked to the door of the pavilion. After placing the puppet in place, he looked at the curious sea-race demonic cultivators and said coldly, "Look after it. If anyone dares to touch this puppet, you will be punished. It's pretty." Without Daoist Jiao's permission, the crab spirit didn't dare to put the puppet in his interspatial ring. He could only place the puppet in a place that Daoist Jiao rarely went to. The demonic cultivators of the sea tribe hurriedly nodded and watched as the crab spirit left. They then sized up the puppet with curious expressions. Chapter 2732. In the top-notch training ground, the 4th immortal meridian in Ning Qi's body was about to be filled with boundless immortal qi. When he looked inside, he could see that the immortal meridian was like a surging river, and there was even a dense mist above it. Ning Qi had been in the top-notch training ground for more than 3,000 years now. Over the next 2,000 years, he had raised his cultivation to the peak of late-stage golden immortal. Now, he was only a paper-thin gap away from the perfected golden immortal realm, as though he could break it with a poke. However, Ning Qi knew that this paper-thin gap would take at least another 100 years or so. 50 years would be used to refine primordial Dao pills, which would yield nearly 10,000 pills. The remaining 50 years would be used to consume these primordial Dao pills. In the blink of an eye, 100 years passed. 100 years passed in the blink of an eye. On this day, when Ning Qi swallowed the last primordial Dao pill in his hand, a soft sound seemed to come from his body. Immediately after, the immortal qi continued to surge, and the 4th immortal meridian was completely filled. At the same time, his bones were being washed by the immortal qi. Under the scouring of the immortal qi, they became increasingly resplendent. Ding! Congratulations on successfully advancing to the perfected golden immortal realm. The system's notification sounded. Ning Qi slowly opened his eyes after feeling the surging power in his body. This seclusion had consecutively broken through 2 minor realms, which had significantly improved his combat strength. Now that his confinement dragon elephant art and 9 inner hidden gates had been cultivated to the extreme, if he couldn't break through in the future, Ning Qi could only rely on the improvement of his immortal Dao and demonic Dao cultivation to increase his combat strength. After becoming a perfected golden immortal, Ning Qi unexpectedly discovered that the gate in his sea of consciousness with the words, "prison suppression," seemed to be surging with power. Doesn't that mean that the enhancement of immortal Tao cultivation can also make the confinement dragon-elephant art slowly improve? Then at the extreme, is it possible for the confinement dragon-elephant art to appear at the 14th level? Ningqi carefully observed the gate, and after confirming that the power coming from inside had indeed increased with his breakthrough, he couldn't help but make a guess. Oh right, advancement mission. Every time he reached the peak of a major realm, the system would arrange advancement missions. Thinking of this, Ningqi went to take a look at the details of the mission, and found that his advancement mission this time was somewhat unusual. Tao verification fruit. There were only 3 words in the details of the mission. It was true that golden immortals needed to attain Tao fruition to ascend to grand immortal, but that was only true for ordinary immortals. Ningqi's previous ascensions required him to complete certain missions arranged by the system, but this time, the system was actually asking him to attain Tao fruition like other immortals? This was a little unusual for Ningqi. However, on second thought, Ningqi was very happy to accept the quest because there was no time limit for it, nor were there any other strange conditions. As long as he obtained his own Tao fruit, he would be able to ascend to the grand heavenly realm just like ordinary immortals. From the looks of it, it was as if the system was giving Ningqi a chance. It was like taking an annual vacation. Ningqi spent 500 heavenly coins to search through the forums. The keyword was Tao fruit, and he found many insights regarding the ascension of a perfected golden immortal to the grand heavenly immortal realm. However, after Ningqi read 10 whole pages and hundreds of topics, he realized that everyone had their own insights regarding attaining Tao fruit. However, they were all somewhat different and some were even worlds apart. From their experience, they could not find many similar examples. It was as if there were no traces to be found, and there was no complete pattern. Some suddenly attained Tao fruition while cultivating. Some attained Tao fruition while on the brink of death. Some attained Tao fruition while hurrying along the way. Some attained Tao fruition while engaging in combat. Some people attained Tao fruit while they were sleeping. Some attained Tao fruition while chatting. Of course, these were just examples. Other examples included those who had painstakingly cultivated and constantly pondered what the fruit of the way was. In the end, in a state of enlightenment, they had attained the fruit of the way. To them, their own path was the correct one. The others were just good luck and could not be considered as words of experience. These answers are all strange, but it's also possible that the real answer is hidden and never posted on the forums. I'll ask Old Man Mystic Sword again if I find him. Ningqi shook his head and put away the All-Heaven Talisman. There was no point in looking any further. After putting away the All-Heaven Talisman, Ningqi took out Little Black and the other 3 flying swords. This time, Ningqi planned to raise their grades to at least low-grade Tao weapons while cultivating the 9 Hell Tempering technique. By then, the Immortal Slaying Sword formation should be able to kill ordinary Xian immortals. If they could be raised to mid-grade Tao weapons, that would be even better. That way, he would be able to compete with Venerable Jiao and the others. When Ningqi used the 9 Hell Tempering technique, the 4 flying swords expressed their joy. Now, other than Little Black, even the other 3 swords' emotions were somewhat obvious. The 9 Hell Tempering technique could obviously raise the grades of the 4 flying sword. Although the speed was not fast, this was something that even the Taichu Chamber of Commerce could not achieve. However, Ningqi could do it. All he needed was time. As the grades of the 4 flying swords increased, Ningqi's proficiency in the 9 Hell Tempering technique also increased. The higher the proficiency, the faster the speed of improvement. Although the progress of both was extremely slow, it was still a virtuous cycle. As long as Ningqi had enough time. Ningqi could not remember how much time had passed. However, he could roughly remember that it had been about 1,000 years. The 4 flying swords had been continuously refined by the 9 Hell Tempering technique, smashed, recombined, refined, broken, recombined, and refined again. Their grades had finally been raised to the middle grade with incomparable stinginess. Low-grade fairy weapon. Ning Qi believed that it would not take him so many years to refine a mid-grade fairy weapon. It will take a lot of time to raise your grades to low-grade Dao weapons. Ning Qi looked at Little Black and the other 3 flying swords and laughed bitterly. Next, Ning Qi's movements did not stop as he immersed himself in the cultivation. At the beginning, he could still feel the passage of time. However, towards the end, time seemed to have stopped for Ning Qi. In his eyes, there were only the 4 flying swords and the 9 hell-tempering technique that was continuously increasing. Chapter 2733. Li Li, I've asked you to use different identities to trade with him all these years. Have you found any clues? Where is he now? Xing Yue stretched lazily and smiled at Li Li, who was standing in the corner of the palace. Li Li walked to Xing Yue and said respectfully, Miss, apart from bargaining, he doesn't answer any other questions. There's no way to get information out of him. I'm really curious. To be able to escape from a place like the Serpent Dragon Palace that even the 4 Grand Unity Immortals can't find, it would be extremely valuable to the Taichu Chamber of Commerce if we knew what method he used. I believe many Xian Immortals would pay a high price for it. Xing Yue said with some pity. Why don't we get straight to the point? Li Li said in a low voice. There's no point in getting straight to the point. With his methods, he won't be interested in too few heavenly coins, and we can't afford more. How many heavenly coins do you think it would cost to buy a method to escape from under the nose of a Grand Unity Immortal? I'm afraid it would be at least 1 billion. Xing Yue smiled. Li Li nodded thoughtfully. He felt that Xing Yue's words made sense. Let's do this for now. Keep the primordial Dao pill deal and find a chance to ask in the future. Xing Yue smiled. As the years went by, the stories of what happened on Cerulean Planet were spread by the immortals who were on the move. Every detail was enough to make people talk about it, especially about Ning Qi's identity. Some people believed that the Azure Mystic Spiritual Master was right. It was Ning Bei. It was Ning Beixian, but others didn't think it was Ning Beixian. Everyone had their own opinions, but as time passed, the topic was replaced by other things. 100 years after Ning Qi disappeared, Longqing and Proto appeared on Blue Water Planet again. It's been so many years, but this kid's aura seems to have disappeared completely. Why don't we give up on this mission? At most, we'll be scolded a little when we go back. Proto was getting impatient. All these years, he and Longqing had gone to many immortal realms, but there was no trace of Ning Qi. Proto had even mobilized the sects and forces under the control of the underworld dragon race to search for him, but there was no result. It was as if Ning Qi had vanished into thin air. The two of them also knew that the Azure Mystic Taoist, Qi Xuezhen, and Zhuozhen were all present. Both of them didn't give up on looking for Ning Qi. The former stopped almost all of the Profound Azure Mansion's activities and ordered all of the forces under the Profound Azure Mansion to search for Ning Qi. Sometimes they would exchange information with the two of them, but every time they found some clues, they would end up with nothing. I don't believe that a living person can completely disappear from this world. Longqing said calmly. Do you still think he was hidden by Venerable Jiao? Proto rolled his eyes. Longqing's tone was firm. Even if he was not hidden by Venerable Jiao, he should still be in Cerulean Planet. He just used some method to deceive you, me, and a primordial existence. Including your master? Even Elder Xianyuan was fooled? He's one of the few primordial immortals in the immortal world who are closest to becoming immortal dukes. Proto couldn't help but ask. In his opinion, Longqing's idea was like trying to save a dead horse. Master is indeed very strong, but there are many strange things in the immortal world. It's hard to say that there is no method that can deceive even Master. Long Qing said calmly. Fine, since you are so sure, I will stay with you in Cerulean Planet for a while. However, I will only stay for 100 years. After 100 years, I will leave this place and return to the clan. Time is used for cultivation, not to be wasted. If I waste a few more years, I am afraid that I will not even be able to rank 5th on the mysterious immortal list. That Yuan Do has been chasing after me all this time, hoping to step on my head one day. I won't let that happen, Ploto said in a deep voice. In the following time, the two of them did not hide their track. Occasionally, they would go deep into the sea to look for clues. Not only did the immortals of Dragon City know that they had returned to Cerulean Planet, even Venerable Jiao knew about it. However, the two of them did not take the initiative to visit Jiao Dragon Palace. He would not take the initiative to show up. Those two geniuses came to Cerulean Planet again. Could it be that they suspect that guy is still hiding in Cerulean Planet? Impossible. How much effort and manpower did the 4 Grand Unity Immortals spend to find that guy? In the end, they found nothing and could only use the Immortal Lord token as an apology. If that guy is still hiding in Cerulean Planet, how could he hide from the Grand Unity Immortals for so many years? You can't be too certain. If you say that it is impossible, then why did those two geniuses reappear in Cerulean Planet? Based on their recent actions, it is clear that they believe that Guy is still in Cerulean Planet. Perhaps they can't find any other clues, so they can only start from here. That is also possible. On the island in the center of the lake. Miss, those two seem to believe that he is still in Cerulean Planet. Li stood beside Xingyue and said in a low voice. Still in Cerulean Planet? Xingyue's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. After thinking for a while, she laughed and said, Let them search. I also want to know if he is still hiding in Cerulean Planet. After pausing for a while, she asked, Has the craftsman that Sage Jiao asked us to invite returned? Li smiled bitterly and nodded. He has returned. This is the 13th batch of craftsmen, but they can't do anything about the damaged puppet. How could it be so easy to repair a puppet made by the ancient Mahists? He can only blame himself for not putting it away properly, and for it to be destroyed by someone like Xianyuan Zhongtian. Xingyue smiled and shook her head. Li laughed and said, Sage Jiao is asking us if we will take back this puppet? Xingyue laughed and said, Of course. Isn't this the business of the Taichu Chamber of Commerce? Let me think of a suitable price. Send someone to send a message. Serpent Dragon Palace. Damn it. An angry roar came from within the Serpent Dragon Palace. The surrounding seawater began to boil, and the sea race and Yao cultivators all knelt on the ground with fear in their eyes. They looked toward the palace where Sage Jiao was, not knowing why he was so angry. Inside the palace, the crab spirit knelt in front of Sage Jiao with its head lowered. 1 million heavenly coins? What a joke! What a joke! I spent 28 million heavenly coins to buy this puppet, and it can only be sold for 1 million heavenly coins after not even using it once. Are you treating me like a beggar? Do I look like a beggar to you? Sage Jiao looked at the crab spirit and roared in a low voice. The crab spirit could not say it out loud. This price was quoted by the Taichu Chamber of Commerce, not by him. Furthermore, the puppet was already useless. Apart from having some research value, the materials on it were worth a bit. It would be very good if it could be sold for 1 million heavenly coins. Chapter 2734. After venting, Venerable Jiao felt depressed. He had paid such a high price, yet he had not obtained anything. Instead, he had almost become a primordial immortal. He had never felt this way since he had become a primordial immortal. Keep a close eye on those two. As soon as they find any clues, inform me immediately. Venerable Jiao snorted and left. After he left, the crab spirit wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. He felt uneasy. Proto was fine. Although the Nether Dragon clan had a higher background than the Flood Dragon clan, and there were also mid-stage primordial immortals in the clan, they could not be like Xianyuan Zhongtian, who was so strong that he could do whatever he wanted. He could wipe out all life in the Flood Dragon Palace. If Xianyuan Zhongtian found out while he was tailing Dragon City, what should he do if he came again? The crab spirit did not dare to mention this in front of Venerable Jiao, so he could only hide it in his heart. He turned around and left the hall. He found the Sea Clan Beast Cultivator, who was only lower than him, and announced Venerable Jiao's order. The Sea Clan in the Sea region opened their eyes wide and watched Dragon City and Proto closely. For immortals, a few decades or even 100 years were not considered time, so time passed very quickly. Another 100 years or so quietly passed. Dragon City and Proto no longer frequently went to the various seas. Instead, they resided in Dragon City in the South Sea, only appearing once in a while. The crab spirit, who had been paying attention to them, heaved a huge sigh of relief. At the top cultivation training ground, 4 flying swords floated in front of Ningqi. The flying swords, which were not even comparable to a low-grade immortal artifact, now gave off a very similar aura of the Great Path. The 4 flying swords, including Black, had recovered to the level of a low-grade Dao artifact. Ningqi's 9 hell tempering technique had reached the 5th level in the past 70 to 80,000 years. This level meant that he had enough spiritual materials. After his cultivation advanced to the Xian immortal realm, he had the power of the Great Path, so he could personally refine it. A low-grade Dao artifact. However, his cultivation was only at the peak of the golden immortal realm, so he could only repair it. He could not refine a supreme-grade immortal artifact or higher. It's not easy, Ningqi let out a sigh. Now, the ability of the 4 flying swords to express their emotions was very clear. Little Black's mood was more cheerful, and it often interacted with Ningqi, but the other 3 were a bit weaker. One of the flying swords seemed to be quite cold, and it rarely had emotional fluctuations. In the beginning, although the quality of the 4 flying swords was very slow, it was still increasing in an orderly manner. Ningqi's 9 hell tempering art was also constantly improving during this period. It only took about 10,000 years for the 4 flying swords to be upgraded to the level of supreme-grade celestial artifacts, and the 9 hell tempering art was upgraded to the 4th level. However, the speed became very slow after that. It took Ningqi 60 to 70,000 years to break through the threshold of the 9 hell tempering technique and advance to the 5th level. Little Black and the other 3 flying swords were also upgraded to low-grade Taoist artifact. At this speed, they would become mid-grade Taoist artifact. Ningqi estimated that it would take at least 10 times the time. At the very least, Ningqi wouldn't be surprised if there were dozens of times more. If that was the case, it would take too long. By the time Ningqi left the top cultivation training ground, thousands of years would have passed in the outside world, and he couldn't guarantee that nothing would happen on the homeworld. Immortal slaying sword formation, form. Ningqi cried softly, and the 4 flying swords shot into the sky at once, forming the immortal slaying sword formation. Then, an extremely intense killing intent shrouded Ningqi. Ningqi was in the eye of the formation, closing his eyes to feel the killing intent. He had a feeling that the current immortal slaying sword formation, even if it couldn't kill a mystic immortal in one blow, could still make them flustered and exhausted. Even if it couldn't kill a mystic immortal in one blow, it could still make them flustered and exhausted. Beneath the pitch-black waters, a figure quietly appeared. Then, with a shake of its body, it turned into an inconspicuous little black fish, and swam out while wagging its tail. Many of the sea race's demon cultivators were patrolling outside, and almost all of them sensed the existence of the little black fish when they passed by. However, they merely glanced at it and didn't think much of it. Such ordinary little fish was not worth their attention at all, and they could be found everywhere in the sea. The little black fish swam to the entrance, and its eyes were immediately attracted by a 10-meter-tall object. Isn't that the Mahist clan puppet that Venerable Jiao spent 28 million all-heaven coins to buy? Why is it just here? A trace of doubt flashed in the little black fish's eyes. At this moment, a sea race's demon cultivator suddenly turned around and looked at the little black fish coldly. The little black fish swam around a few times, and its innocent eyes met with the sea race's demon cultivator from afar. "What's wrong?" asked a sea race's demon cultivator with a frown. "I feel that it's a little strange. I've never seen this kind of black fish before. Have any of you seen a fellow cultivator transformed from this kind of black fish? You're making a fuss about nothing. What's so strange about it? I think you should find some time to go out and see the world." There are many more types of sea race's demon cultivators in the Langia celestial domain than here, and I've seen them before. It's just that the black fish seems to be very interested in the puppet. I heard that the ancestors spent 28 million all-heaven coins to buy the Mahist clan puppet. Although it's destroyed, the spiritual materials used to make it are difficult to find in the celestial world. Perhaps it still emits a trace of spiritual chi that you and I can't detect. It's normal for it to attract these unintelligent creatures. Oh, after the patrolling sea race's demon cultivators left, the corners of the little black fish's mouth seemed to rise. It gently pointed at the puppet that had no spiritual chi at all, and with a whoosh, the huge puppet disappeared. Then, the little black fish frantically shook its tail and swam upward. About an hour later, the same group of sea race's demon cultivators patrolled the area again. When they passed by the gate where the puppet had been placed, they didn't feel anything at first and just walked past it. Then, the group of sea race's demon cultivators all turned around and looked at the empty gate with their mouths agape. Rui's gate. Where's the puppet? The faces of the sea race's demon cultivators originally looked very dark in the depths of the dark sea. At this moment, their faces were so dark that it seemed as if they had been poisoned. "There's something strange about that little black fish." The sea race's demon cultivator, who raised the question first, almost jumped up and down. His face was filled with shock and anger, and he immediately spread out his divine sense to search for the whereabouts of the little black fish. But at this moment, the little black fish had already broken out of the sea, turned into a goshawk, and left Blue Water Star. Chapter 27:35. After receiving the report from his subordinates, the crab spirit rushed to the scene immediately. The place where the puppet had been placed was now empty. There were only some traces left on the ground, proving that a huge object had been placed there. The crab spirit turned his neck stiffly and looked at the group of sea race Yao cultivators. "When did you discover that it was missing?" One of the sea race Yao cultivators told them what they had discovered in a low voice. He even mentioned that there had been a small black fish swimming nearby. "Do you mean that the person who stole the puppet was a sea race Yao cultivator?" The crab spirit took a deep breath. "Chief, it's highly possible." Everyone looked at each other and nodded. "Tell me, which sea race Yao cultivator dared to sneak into the Serpent Dragon Palace and steal the Patriarch's item?" The crab spirit's eyes were almost spitting fire. The group of sea race Yao cultivators who were responsible for patrolling the area were frightened. They lowered their heads and did not dare to speak. "You are all a bunch of trash!" the crab spirit roared. "Wait until I report this to the Patriarch. If he gets angry, I won't have a good ending, and neither will you." After saying that, the crab spirit's body moved and disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already outside a palace. Inside the palace, Venerable Jiao looked at Long Cheng and Proto with a faint smile. He had been cultivating in seclusion, but the two of them had suddenly come to visit him. For the sake of Xianyuan Zhongtian, he had to personally receive them with his Tai body. Honorable nephews, I dare to guarantee that the brat you are looking for is definitely not on Blue Water Star. He has already escaped using some unknown method. No matter how many years you stay on Blue Water Star, you will not be able to find any traces of him. Venerable Jiao smiled. Senior, just as Long Qing was about to speak, the crab spirit suddenly barged into the palace. He looked at Long Qing and Proto, then immediately sent a voice transmission to Venerable Jiao. Patriarch, the puppet is missing. Long Qing and Proto looked at each other, then at the crab spirit. Their eyes flashed with suspicion. Since the crab spirit had barged into the palace, something must have happened to the Serpent Dragon Palace. Venerable Jiao was stunned. He thought he had misheard. He subconsciously stood up and walked in front of the crab spirit. He whispered, "Someone came to the Serpent Dragon Palace and stole the puppet?" The Serpent Dragon Palace was stolen? Just now? The two of them were slightly shocked. Who was so bold as to dare to come to Tai's territory to steal things? That's right, the crab spirit nodded bitterly. But Master Jiao swung his hand and slapped the crab spirit's face. The crab spirit couldn't react in time, so it was sent flying out of the palace. Master Jiao then walked out of the palace, ignoring the two of them. Let's follow and take a look. Frodo's face was filled with excitement. Long Qing thought for a moment and his eyes slightly moved. He got up and walked out of the hall. Not long after, the crab spirit covered his face with one hand and brought Daoist Jiao to the place where the puppet was stolen. It was a remote place in the Jiao Dragon Palace, so Daoist Jiao would not normally come here. The two of them followed from a distance. After seeing Daoist Jiao, the sea race beast cultivators quickly knelt on the ground. They lowered their heads and shivered. "Speak, tell me everything from the beginning to the end." Venerable Jiao glanced at the marks on the ground and said calmly. Even though he was trying his best to suppress his anger and look calm, everyone knew that Venerable Jiao's anger was like a surging river. Although it was calm, it was still powerful enough to kill someone. The dignified Jiao Dragon Palace had been infiltrated by a thief, who had stolen the Mo family's puppet that he had bought for 28 million all-heaven coins. Even though the puppet had already been destroyed by Xianyuan Zhongtian, and the loss was not too great, such an action was equivalent to someone slapping Daoist Jiao in the face. Daoist Jiao had just been taught a lesson by Xianyuan Zhongtian 200 years ago, and he had suffered heavy losses? The anger in his heart had yet to completely subside. The crab spirit repeated what had happened in a low voice. Originally, he was angry that his subordinates had placed the suspicion on the small black fish, as if they were trying to shirk responsibility. However, he now placed the focus on the small black fish. Otherwise, without any clues, it would be easier to anger Daoist Jiao. If that happened, they would not have a good time. Small black fish? Ah. You're saying that a small black fish stole my puppet? Ah. Daoist Jiao was so angry that he started laughing. The crab spirit knelt on the ground in fear. He had sensed a trace of killing intent hidden in Daoist Jiao's laughter. The crab felt a bit bitter. Given Daoist Jiao's current state, he needed to vent his anger. The cultivations of the patrolling sea race's monster cultivators were too low, and they were not enough to be his punching bag. However, he was very suitable for this role. If he was not careful, he might die here. Senior, Long Cheng's voice suddenly rang out. Paluto was stunned for a moment, then he quickly transmitted a message to Long Cheng. "This dragon is very angry. Don't provoke him for no reason." "What is it?" Daoist Jiao suddenly turned his head and looked coldly at Long Cheng. "I smell it." Long Cheng closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Because of the endless seawater around him, he hadn't been able to immediately sense the aura. However, now that he was less than 30 meters away from where the puppet had disappeared, he finally caught a whiff of that aura. "What did you smell?" Daoist Jiao furrowed his eyebrows and temporarily suppressed his anger. The crab spirit looked at Long Qing in a daze and rejoiced in his heart. If Long Qing had not interrupted Daoist Jiao, he might have already died. Ning Beixian has never left Blue Water Star. Long Qing shouted in a low voice, then stomped his feet and shot into the sky like a cannonball. What? Shock flashed in Peludo's eyes. He did not have time to ask any questions, so he quickly followed. Ning Beixian? Venerable Jiao was stunned. Then, his face turned pale. Regardless of how the other party was sure that Ning Beixian hadn't left the Blue Water Planet, this explanation seemed to make more sense. A guy who had disappeared without a trace had reappeared and taken his puppet away. Daoist Jiao would rather believe that someone had risked his life to sneak into the Jiao Dragon Palace to steal a puppet that had lost all its functions. Patriarch, does he mean that that guy has been hiding in our Jiao Dragon Palace all this time? The crab spirit had an astounded expression, and then his heart was instantly filled with boundless flames of rage. When Ning Qi vanished that day, he'd naturally suffered extreme punishment as the caretaker. If it was Ning Qi who'd stolen the puppet this time, then he wished for nothing more than to swallow Ning Qi whole by whole mouthful. Chapter 2736. The crab spirit hated Ning Qi to the core, but so did Daoist Jiao. This time, even if there was no benefit at all, he was prepared to help capture Ning Qi. I'd like to see what kind of trick that guy used to deceive me and make me suffer such heavy losses. Daoist Jiao grinned as he gnashed his teeth. The next moment, his body moved slightly and broke out of the water, appearing next to Long Qing and Proto. Nephew Long Qing, how is it? Is that guy still in Blue Water Planet? Asked Daoist Jiao. Long Qing frowned. He looked south and north from time to time. He was not sure if Ning Qi was hiding in Blue Water Planet or if he had left. That aura was intermittent, and it should have been more than 200 years since the senior from the ancestral planet gave him Ning Qi's aura. Long Qing estimated that in another 1 or 2 years, he would completely lose this aura, and he would no longer be able to use it to locate Ning Qi. Not long after, under the guidance of the crab spirit, silhouettes floated to the surface of the sea. When the celestials that were passing by saw this, they quickly turned around and left. They hid in the distance and watched with shock in their eyes. There were countless sea race and beast cultivators below Daoist Jiao and the others. The weakest among them was an early-stage golden immortal. Half of their bodies were still in the water, and they seemed to be waiting for Daoist Jiao's orders. Senior, please be patient. Long Qing cupped his hands at Daoist Jiao. He gently extended his right palm, and a wisp of white qi soared into the sky. Then, Long Qing sent a few golden seals into the wisp of white qi. The originally weak white qi suddenly became several hundred times stronger, turning into a white rainbow that flew towards Blue Water Planet. It sped away. This is Ning Beixian's aura. I've used a secret art to strengthen it a few hundred times and point out where Ning Beixian went, but it will disappear soon. From then on, I won't be able to use it to locate him anymore. Senior, you're a grand unity, so you're much faster than us. Please take us with you. Please take the 2 of us and capture him alive. Long Qing cupped his hands at Daoist Jiao. He was not as impatient as Proto. From the moment the puppet disappeared until now, at least 2 hours had passed. 2 hours was enough for Ning Qi to run very far away. With the strength of the 2 of them, they were not 100% sure that they could find Ning Qi. After his aura dissipated, there was even less of a chance. That was why he had asked Venerable Jiao for help. Only by doing so could he increase his chances of capturing Ning Qi alive. Well said. True Master Jiao grinned. He grabbed one in each hand and flew in the direction of the aura. The crab spirit waved his hand. Keep up. The mighty demonic cultivators of the sea race suddenly soared into the sky, creating wave. A goshawk sped through the universe. Every time it flapped its wings, it could fly tens of thousands of miles. Its speed had surpassed that of a celestial boat that was specially used for traveling. Occasionally there would be two celestials passing by. When they saw this scene, they would move aside because they could feel that the goshawk's aura was extraordinary. I can't help but feel uneasy. This feeling. They must have caught up. Ningqi thought to himself. He used the 8-9 arcane arts transformation technique to transform into a small black fish and hide from Daoist Jiao's aura. Then, he conveniently stole the puppet. Everything went so smoothly, even though he knew that if he stole the puppet, Daoist Jiao would definitely find out. Then, he would catch up. If he did not steal the puppet, Daoist Jiao would probably never find out. However, Ningqi stole the puppet. Apart from wanting to vent his anger, the puppet itself was very attractive to Ningqi. According to the Taichu Chamber of Commerce, its original battle power should have been equivalent to a primordial unity perfected immortal. Even if it was only comparable to an early-stage primordial unity perfected immortal, it was still a great weapon. However, the Taichu Chamber of Commerce did not have the ability to repair it, so it was put up for sale at the Celestial Ascension Gathering. However, even with the Taichu Chamber of Commerce's power, they were unable to find a craftsman who could repair the puppet. One could imagine that the methods of the ancient Mo family had not been cracked by the current craftsman. However, Ningqi was different. He had the 9 hell tempering technique, and even Black and the others had been restored to the level of a low-grade doctrine artifact. If he could repair the puppet, it would be a great help. At the very least, he would be able to talk to a primordial unity perfected immortal on an equal footing. As he thought of this, Ningqi decided to enter the top-notch cultivation training ground to study the puppet while avoiding Daoist Jiao's pursuit. He was not confident that he could be faster than a primordial unity perfected immortal. System, I want to enter the top-notch cultivation training ground. The host is currently in a state of battle. You cannot enter. The system's notification was heard. Ningqi's eyes flashed with shock. The next moment, he felt a chill run down his spine. This was because he discovered that his state of battle was constantly being refreshed. It had been maintained for 24 hours. Little guy, your transformation technique is really rare. If I hadn't seen you transform from a small black fish into a goshawk with my own eyes, I wouldn't have been able to tell that you are a human cultivator. A loud and clear voice was heard behind Ningqi. Senior, you are? Ningqi immediately transformed into a human and slowly turned around to look at the figure in white. Xianyuan Zhongtian? The master of Bai Xingxue and Longqing. The second on the Tai True Immortal list? He has been in Cerulean Planet all this time? Ningqi wore a smile on his face, but his heart was in turmoil. However, Ningqi was still calm. The other party did not kill him immediately, which meant that he had a chance to escape, even though this chance might be slight. After all, Xianyuan Zhongtian was not an ordinary primordial unity perfected immortal. His methods were more powerful than 100 Daoist Jiaos. After all, Xianyuan Zhongtian was not an ordinary primordial unity immortal. Xianyuan Zhongtian, the Bai Xingxue you killed, was my second disciple. Xianyuan Zhongtian smiled. Senior Xianyuan, I have often heard Li Xian mention you. I heard that the All-Heaven Talisman was invented by you. Ningqi smiled. I know that you and Xian are our old friends. She was brought back to the celestial realm by my junior brother. She had only been under my tutelage for a few years. As for Xingxue, he has been my disciple for many years. Now that he has died at your hands, do you think I will let you go for Xian's sake? Xianyuan Zhongtian smiled and said. After a pause he continued, flattery is useless. The little guy who invented the All-Heaven Talisman is now my junior brother's disciple. Senior, are you planning to kill me to avenge Bai Xingxue? Chapter 27:37. You killed my second disciple, so I should kill you too. However, there are two seniors who want to capture you alive for some reason. Can you tell me what they want from you? Xianyuan Zhongtian said with a faint smile. Are you talking about Jiang Yu and Jiang Hao? The corners of Ning Qi's mouth rose. It's just as they said. You know the two seniors' real names, but you're just saying them out loud. Are you trying to scare us? Xianyuan Zhongtian squinted his eyes. Master. A surprised voice suddenly sounded. Then, Master Jiao appeared in front of Ning Qi and Xianyuan Zhongtian, holding Longqing and Proto in one hand. Brother Xianyuan? Sage Jiao looked at Xianyuan Zhongtian, and his eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. In the next instant, his gaze fell on Ning Qi, and he immediately became furious. He would never forget Ning Qi's aura. It was this guy who had caused him such heavy losses. This guy has been hiding in Blue Water Star. I didn't expect Senior Xianyuan to capture him. It shouldn't be a coincidence. Senior Xianyuan must have been paying attention to Blue Water Star, Proto thought to himself as he looked at Ning Qi. You're here. Xianyuan Zhongtian smiled at the three of them. Venerable Jiao suddenly had a thought. He quickly cupped his hands at Xianyuan Zhongtian and said, Brother Xianyuan, I don't know what spell he used, but he has been hiding in the Blue Water Planet all this time. I swear to the heavens that I have no intention of hiding anything. When he left, he even stole my puppet. Senior, what nonsense are you talking about? I don't have anything on me, let alone your puppet. Ning Qi smiled. You deserve to die. Master Jiao stared at Ning Qi. He scanned Ning Qi with his mind and found that Ning Qi did not have an interspatial ring. All right, Xianyuan Zhongtian said calmly. As soon as he spoke, Master Jiao's mind was cut off by some sort of power, causing his face to turn pale. Since you've caught up, I'll take you to a place to meet the two seniors. Xianyuan Zhongtian smiled. The two seniors? Dragonborn and Proto were overjoyed. Taoist Jiao immediately threw everything else to the back of his mind and looked at Xianyuan Zhongtian expectantly. Brother Xianyuan, can I go as well? Speaking of which, you've also helped me a little in catching this kid. For the sake of that incomplete Immortal Lord token, let's go together this time. But you don't have to think about the reward. Xianyuan Zhongtian smiled. Senior Xianyuan, should I inform my ancestor? Proto suddenly spoke. He had been sent by the ancestor of the Nether Dragon tribe and had been instructed to do so. Now that Xianyuan Zhongtian seemed to be planning to meet the two seniors, he immediately panicked. That's too troublesome. There's no need to inform them. Xianyuan Zhongtian's lips curled up slightly. Double cross. Proto suddenly felt a tinge of regret. Right now, he had two choices in front of him. He could either go back and inform the old ancestor, or follow Xianyuan Zhongtian to meet the two seniors. Almost in an instant, Proto made a decision. Then I'll listen to you, Senior Xianyuan. Proto laughed. On a certain first-class planet, Longqing and Proto followed behind Xianyuan Zhongtian, walking on an official road. Occasionally, a horseman would pass by and glance at them. Ning Qi followed behind the three of them, walking slowly. Reverend Jiao walked alongside Ning Qi. Kid, what method did you use back then to hide from us Grand Unity Immortals? Reverend Jiao secretly transmitted his voice. Guess. Ning Qi smiled. If you don't tell me now, you won't have a chance to tell me later. If you tell me everything you know, I might be able to help you get out of this dangerous situation. Reverend Jiao transmitted his voice. Dangerous situation? I don't know what you're talking about. Ning Qi transmitted his voice with a smile. You're still playing dumb? What exactly are you hiding on your body that even those two seniors want to catch you? Their origins are extraordinary. Even the Langya Immortal Emperor cannot compare to them. Reverend Jiao's eyes flickered with anger. At that moment, another horseman passed by, their hooves kicking up a cloud of dust. Proto's mouth moved, as if he wanted to ask why they were walking on the ground. And why were they walking slower than these mortals on horseback? However, seeing Xianyuan Zhongtian's expressionless face, he dispelled the thought of asking. I know, Jiang Yu and Jiang Hao, celestial emperors of the Tiandao family. Ning Qi smiled. Since you know, you should have some understanding of your current situation. Reverend Jiao frowned slightly. He was somewhat curious as to why a mere golden immortal would know such secrets. He had only learned of the existence of the Tiandao family after becoming a Grand Unity immortal. Only then did he know that the celestial emperors and celestial lords in the celestial world were not as rare as they seemed. After all, the immortals of the Tiandao family did not know that they had entered the heavenly law list. Thinking of this, Reverend Jiao looked at Ning Qi's cultivation. Peak Golden Immortal. After hiding in Cerulean Planet for 200 years, when he reappeared, he was already a perfected Golden Immortal. He suspected that Ning Qi had been hiding his true cultivation level. Otherwise, how could he have reached such a level in just 200 years? Otherwise, how could he have increased by 2 small realms in a short period of 200 years? Sage Jiao, I understand the Tiandao family much better than you do. You don't need to worry about my current situation. If you really think about it, when I fought with Jiang Yu, you might not even have been born yet. Ning Qi transmitted his voice with a smile. When Reverend Jiao heard this, he looked at Ning Qi with a strange expression. Do you really think you can scare me like this? It's up to you whether you believe me or not, Ning Qi said with a smile. No matter how Reverend Jiao tried to probe him, he did not say anything. Long Cheng and Proto were also paying attention to Ning Qi's expression. They discovered that even though Ning Qi was surrounded by 2 primordial unity immortals and 2 peak mysterious immortals, he was still as calm as before. He still has some tricks up his sleeve. It's just a trick to hide himself. We just need to be careful and not give him a chance. If he could really disappear without a trace in front of us, he would have used this trick long ago. Why wait until today? That's true. Senior Xianyuan, are the caves of those 2 seniors really on a first-class planet like this? The strongest here is only a human immortal, right? Chapter 2738. Xianyuan Zhongtian glanced at Ning Qi, smiled, and did not speak. Instead, Proto scolded him. Why are you running in front? Get behind me. What a joke. He and Longqing had to follow behind Xianyuan Zhongtian, but Ning Qi was actually planning to walk alongside Xianyuan Zhongtian? If someone who did not know what was going on saw them, they would think that they were the 2's servants. My legs are my legs. What does it have to do with you if I walk in front or behind you? Ning Qi looked at Proto, the corners of his mouth rising slightly. If Daoist Jiao and Xianyuan Zhongtian were not present, Ning Qi would not have minded using the immortal killing sword formation. Long Cheng's cultivation was a level higher than Proto's, so Ning Qi was not 100% sure that he could kill him. However, he felt that if Proto did not have too many unexpected trump cards, there was only one way to go after entering the immortal killing sword formation. If he left, he would die. You! Proto was immediately furious. Silence. Xianyuan Zhongtian suddenly spoke. Long Qing subconsciously glanced at him and was shocked. He could see that Xianyuan Zhongtian's expression was somewhat strange. I'll teach you a lesson sooner or later. Proto coldly glanced at Ning Qi and transmitted his voice. Is that so? I'm looking forward to it. Ning Qi smiled slightly. Go! A loud shout came from behind them. Immediately after, over 100 knights whizzed past. The splashing soil took a full 10 breaths of time for it to settle down. These ants have short lifespans. They're really in a hurry. Disdain flashed in Proto's eyes. After walking for a short distance, a small bamboo forest suddenly appeared in front of them. Beside the bamboo forest, there was a tea stall. Countless horses were tied in the bamboo forest, and the tea stall, which only had 7 or 8 tables, was also filled with people. The owner of the tea stall was sweating profusely, and there seemed to be some fear in his eyes. The knights that had just whizzed past on the official road all dismounted at this moment. Because there were not enough seats in the tea stall, some of the knights were drinking tea and eating dry rations beside their horses. Their weapons were also casually placed to the side. The tea stall owner seemed to have never seen such a large formation, so he was somewhat afraid. Interestingly, not all the tables in the tea stall were occupied by knights. An old man and a woman were sitting at one of the tables. The woman was cradling a baby in her arms. At the other table sat 3 young men. The remaining tables were occupied by the group of knights. Master? Longqing looked at Xianyuan Zhongtian with a trace of doubt in his eyes. He didn't understand why Xianyuan Zhongtian would stand here and look at these mortals. Could it be that there was something special about these mortals? Ha ha ha! Yi Tianjian didn't protect his wife and son, but let you bunch of trash protect him. Even the heavens are helping me. A loud voice suddenly rang out. Then, dozens of red shadows shot out like lightning and appeared not far away from the tea stall. They were dozens of strong men dressed in red. Their qi and blood were boiling. Although they were not cultivators, they were probably rare experts among mortals. Blood Cloth Sect? After the group of strong men in red appeared, the knights near the tea stall quickly stood up and looked at the group of strong men in red in surprise. At this moment, a hint of panic flashed through the eyes of the woman who was carrying the baby. She subconsciously wanted to hide the baby. Meanwhile, the old man who was sitting at the same table with her nodded slightly at her. He stood up and walked past the knight, staring at the strong man who was the leader of the red-clothed men. Your blood cloth sect had 3 Xiantian masters and 36 Peak Hotian masters. They committed all sorts of evil deeds. Later on, my young master came to your blood cloth sect with a sword and killed for 3 days and 3 nights. In the end, all 3 Xiantian masters and 35 Peak Hotian masters died. You should be the one who escaped that day. Shueluhan, the only Peak Hotian master who escaped that day? The old man said slowly. Shueluhan? Peak Hotian master? A trace of fear flashed in the eyes of the knights nearby. They looked at the old man anxiously. It seemed that among everyone present, only the old man could be this guy's opponent. A Jianghu killing among mortals? Ryuqing's eyes moved slightly as he exchanged a glance with Proto. He was somewhat suspicious. Could it be that his master had stopped just to see this? Isn't this a little too boring? Venerable Jiao seemed to be thinking the same thing as the other two. However, he did not mind wasting some time to watch a show, so he did not say anything. That's right, I am Shueluhan. You are Yi Tianjian's servant, the Vajra hand? It just so happens that I also cultivate palm technique. Come out and compete with me. Let's see whether your Vajra hand or my Luohan palm is stronger. Shueluhan laughed sinisterly. Today, I will kill all of Yi Tianjian's lackeys. Yi Tianjian can't even protect himself now. He is on his last breath, but he is still holding on. If I bring his wife and child over, let's see what kind of expression he will have. If it were any other time I would compete with you. However, today you poison me? Halfway through his sentence, the old man suddenly clutched his chest and took a few steps back. He sat back on the stool and leaned against the table, looking at Shueluhan in disbelief. The other horsemen seemed to have been poisoned as well. Some of the ones with lower cultivation rolled their eyes and fainted. At that moment, the owner of the tea stall, who looked terrified, ran to Shueluhan's side with a smile and bowed to ask for credit. Only then did everyone realize that the blood cloth sect had not caught up with them. Instead, they had set up an ambush here. There was only one possibility: there was a traitor among them. Shameless! The dignified blood cloth sect actually used such a despicable trick. Despicable! Many horsemen cursed, their eyes filled with shock and anger. I personally bought the poison from the Saint of Poison for a large sum of money. I have long heard that you are like a dog and can smell any poison. However, this is the heavenly heart powder. Surely you can't detect it, right? It is colorless and tasteless. How colorless and tasteless. Are you out of energy now? Don't think about circulating your energy to detoxify the poison. Other than the antidote in my hands, no one else can detoxify the heavenly heart powder in your bodies, Shweluohan said with a smile. After a pause, Shweluohan's gaze fell on the woman. To be more precise, he was looking at the baby. You still have some strength left. Throw Yi Tianjian's son over and I will spare your lives today. The old man suddenly laughed. I have already been poisoned. Why don't you dare to come and take it? There was a hidden crossbow in his sleeve. At that moment it was already on the string. The crossbow's arrow glowed with a dim light. It was obvious that it had been dipped in poison. Shweluohan glanced at his subordinates, only to see them avoiding his gaze. None of them were willing to take the risk. After all, no matter what, the old man was a famous peak postnatal expert. Who knew if he had other tricks up his sleeve? Chapter 2739. Me! Ningqi looked around and saw Shweluohan's gaze on him. He could not help but point at himself with a smile. Yes, you. Shweluohan said coldly. The old man's expression changed slightly. The crossbow in his sleeve could only shoot one arrow. Shweluohan was so cautious that he did not even send his own subordinate. Instead, he found a passerby to be the scapegoat. Even if he shot Ningqi to death, he would not be able to escape today. All right. Ningqi nodded with a smile and strode towards the old man. The nearby knights who were paralyzed by the poison immediately shouted, Little scholar, don't be a busybody. The blood cloth sect never leaves anyone alive. Even if you listen to his orders, you won't be able to escape death. This is Yi Tianjian's son. Little scholar, haven't you heard of him? Brother Yi has been in the martial world for many years and has killed countless demons. That's why the impurities in the underworld have been reduced. If you listen to this villain and hand Brother Ye's son over to him, you will be the sinner of the entire underworld. Ningqi looked like a slightly tall and weak scholar. Because of his fair and clean skin, he did not look like someone who practiced martial arts. Some knights even tried to stop Ningqi, but the effect of the heaven's heart powder was too strong. They could only raise their palms slightly. Shweluohan watched this scene with a smile. Soon, Ningqi walked in front of the old man. Little brother, if you don't want to die, escape with the young master. I have a way to buy you some time. The old man looked at Ningqi and his lips moved slightly as he lowered his voice. The crossbow in your sleeves is useless against me. Ningqi grinned. You're not a scholar? The old man's eyes lit up. Even Shweluohan did not discover the crossbow in his sleeve. How could a weak scholar discover it? Bald brat. What are you waiting for? Shweluohan frowned and shouted impatiently. Let me see the child. Ningqi walked past the old man and smiled at the woman. A trace of panic flashed in the woman's eyes as she looked at the old man subconsciously. However, the old man was even more panicked than her. He realized that he could not move at all. This was definitely not because of the heaven's heart powder. The effect of the heaven's will powder was not this strong. In the next moment, for some reason, the woman seemed to be in a daze as she handed the baby to Ningqi. Ha ha. The baby let out a burst of sweet laughter, and at the same time, his little lotus root-like hands and feet were constantly kicking. Seeing this, Shwe Arhat heaved a sigh of relief. As long as he could get his hands on the child, he would be able to avenge the blood cloth sect brothers who had died in Yi Tianjian's hands. Throw the kid over. Blood Arhat said. Ningqi didn't respond to him. Instead, he was teasing the baby in the swaddling cloth. The baby's laughter was melodious and loud. As a result, all the nearby knights became weird. The old man's anxious look gradually faded away and was replaced by a dubious look. The blood-clad sex survivors beside Xue Luohan exchanged glances. They finally felt that something was wrong. How could a scholar be so calm in such a situation? That bald brat! What are you waiting for? If you don't hand the child over to me, I'll kill all the people who came with you. Xue Luohan roared. Immediately, a few of his men surrounded Xianyuan Zhongtian and the others. As long as Xue Luohan gave the order, they would fight against each other. I hate people like you who use children, women, and children to threaten others the most. Ning Qi let out a long laugh and gently stretched out his hand. The majestic immortal Qi turned into a huge palm and grabbed Xue Luohan tightly. Xue Luohan's men and the knights on the old man's side were dumbfounded when they saw this scene. They were extremely shocked. What kind of technique was this? After Xue Luohan was grabbed by the immortal Qi hand, his face turned extremely pale. He didn't expect that the seemingly weak scholar in front of him was such a monster. Even an inborn realm expert wouldn't be able to transform spiritual Qi into a human form, right? As senior, this is a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. Xue Luohan reacted very quickly. He smiled embarrassedly and begged for mercy. Do you think he wants to die? Just a laugh and he wants to die. Ning Qi ignored Xue Luohan and smiled at the infant in the swaddling clothes. Xue Luohan looked at Ning Qi in disbelief. He was an expert at the peak of the post-liminary realm. How could Ning Qi hand over his life to a baby who didn't even know how to speak? Hee, the baby waved his arms and legs as he laughed. Twice. It's twice. Xue Luohan immediately heaved a sigh of relief. Even if he wants to laugh, it seems that you want him to die. Ning Qi placed the baby back in the hands of the confused woman and looked at Xue Luohan. What? Xue Luohan looked at Ning Qi with a dumbfounded expression. He wants to die even if he laughs? Doesn't that mean he's going to die anyway? Senior, bang. With a thought, Ning Qi clenched the immortal Qi hand and Xue Luohan turned into a pile of mud. Run. When the rest of the blood cloth sect saw this, they immediately fled in all directions. They knew that if they stayed, they would only die. However, before they could even take half a step, Long Qing waved his hand and a ray of light circled around them. Immediately after, the strong men in red were all decapitated. Even in death, they didn't know what had killed them. The old man, the woman, and the knights looked at Ning Qi and the others with fear in their eyes. Although Ning Qi and the others had helped kill all the people from the blood cloth sect, this method was beyond their imagination. It was as shocking as a ghost. Ning Qi threw a glance at Long Qing with a faint smile. Closely after that, he walked to another table in the tea-house and sat down. There were always 3 young men on this table. After noticing Ning Qi's movement, the Poison Knights suddenly realized that the 3 young men didn't show any sign of being poisoned at all. Hey! The matter has been resolved. Why are you still sitting down? Don't tell me you really want to drink some tea? Proto couldn't help but mock. Brother Xianyuan, business is more important. What do you think? Venerable Jiao looked at Xianyuan Zhongtian and smiled. Wait. Xianyuan Zhongtian had a strange expression. His eyes seemed to flicker with doubt, as if he wasn't sure about something. Brother Bai, Brother Mo, Brother Ji, long time no see. The 3 of you are still as elegant as ever. Ning Qi picked up the teapot and poured himself a cup. After drinking it, he put down the cup and smiled at the 3 of them. After a while, the person called Brother Bai suddenly smiled and said, Look, it's really him. Apart from him, who else would recognize how we looked when we were young? Chapter 2740. Brother Ning, it's been many years since we last saw each other. Ever since we parted ways in the ancestral star, the three of us never heard from you again. I never thought that you and I were not from the same era. Emosia looked at Ningqi with a faint smile. His eyes flashed with a hint of emotion as he recalled the scenes back on Ancestral Star. At the Immortal Lord Shengong residence, he injured Tiandao family's disciple Jiang Yu with a single arrow. Everyone was shocked. After all, Ningqi was only a heavenly immortal back then, and it was unheard of for him to injure a profound immortal genius like Jiang Yu. After they parted ways in the Ancestral Star, when the three of them became immortal lords, they could no longer find any news about Ningqi. It was only now that they realized that Ningqi did not belong to their era. Looks like all of you know. Ningqi smiled. He was very relaxed because the trio's presence and demeanor were exactly the same as when they were on the homeworld. If there was anything different, it would be the look in their eyes, which was less carefree and more profound. From what Emperor Bai had said, Ningqi knew that this was not their current appearance, and that they had changed to this appearance purely to test him. The matter of the divine tomb is not a secret, and we can't hide it for long. Moreover, we have Ji Fei, the divine diviner. What can't he divine? In fact, even if something happened to Ji Fei before the second divine tomb was opened, I would not have passed by the ancestral star otherwise. Emperor Bai smiled at Ningqi. When Ji Fei said that there was someone in the ancestral star with the same name as you, I really did not believe it. I wanted to personally go to the ancestral star to verify it, but not even the immortal emperors of the Tiandao family would dare to enter the ancestral star, much less us. Coincidentally, there was one of my disciples who was also from the ancestral star, and he was from the same sect as you, so I let him bring my ancestral purple jade to the Xianjian sect. But you did not remember this, nor did you recognize the purple jade. Even I could not divine the origin of the second divine tomb. I did not expect it to have such a divine ability to send people to the ancestral star, crossing 1,800 eons. Ji Fei smiled and shook his head, as if he was impressed by the divine tomb master. So, when Ji Fei divined that we would one day become immortal lords, Brother Ning, you must have been very sure, right? Emosia laughed. Of course. It's just that I didn't expect the three of you to become high immortals at the same time despite being good friends. Ningqi sighed. At this moment, Bai Di reached out and filled Ningqi's cup with tea. Seeing this, Xianyuan Zhongtian's eyes flashed with shock. When he looked at Ningqi again, his eyes were filled with fear. Brother Bai, Brother Mo, Brother Ji, could it be that you are waiting for me here today? Ningqi laughed. The three of them looked at each other and nodded with a smile. Emosia smiled and said, the three of us haven't seen each other for many years. Some time ago, Ji Fei sent a message to the two of us, asking us to come here and meet him. As a result, we met Brother Ning. Emperor Bai smiled and nodded. Ji Fei smiled and said, I've calculated it and feel that today's timing is just right. Brother Ning will face a tribulation today. If it was any other time, even if the three of us joined forces, it would be difficult to deal with it. But today is different. Why? The two fellows who want to capture Brother Ning are Jiang Yu, who was already a profound immortal back then. The other is Jiang Hao, who I heard has a higher cultivation than Jiang Yu. Emperor Bai's eyes showed a hint of seriousness. As he spoke, he looked in a certain direction. Ningqi could see that he was a little worried. Emosia smiled and said, Brother Bai, what are you afraid of? We'll deal with it when it comes. Back on the ancestral planet, Jiang Yu was defeated by Brother Ning. Don't worry, those two are coincidentally not here today. My divination is the best. We still have a lot of time to catch up. Ji Fei smiled confidently. The elders, women, and knights were unable to understand the conversation between the four of them. Even Longqing, Proto, and Daoist Jiao were confused. This was because the information revealed by the conversation between the four of them was too shocking. What 1,800 ancient? What high immortal! What kind of show was this? Young master, the elder struggled to stand up. His body was a little wobbly, but his physique was indeed very strong. The other knights who were younger and stronger than him could not even move a finger. Oh, right. Ning Qi smiled at the old man and gently waved his hand. Some immortal qi entered the bodies of the old man and the others like raindrop. In the blink of an eye, the heaven's heart powder was expelled from their bodies. Thank you, young master. The old man was pleasantly surprised to feel his recovered body. He hurriedly stepped forward and cupped his hands. The woman held the child in her arms and looked at Ning Qi with some fear before bowing together with the old man. Seeing that the elder was about to speak again, Ning Qi smiled and said, I've met 3 of my best friends today, and have a lot to talk about. If there's nothing else, you can leave first. Everyone glanced at the 3 young men, and felt a little shocked. They guessed that the 3 of them were probably experts with unfathomable cultivation bases, just like Ning Qi. When they thought about how they had sat with the 3 of them, they felt a little scared. Benefactor, please give us your name. We will never forget the favor of saving our lives today. The elder hurriedly bowed. Ning Bei-shin. Ning Qi smiled. Ning Bei-shin, the elder muttered in his heart, but he realized that he had never heard of this name before. He immediately thought that Ning Qi was from some hidden family. After the elder and the others left, Xianyuan Zhongtian slowly walked in front of Emperor Bai and looked at Ning Qi with a complicated expression. Then, he half knelt on the ground and said, Disciple Xianyuan Zhongtian greets Master. Master, Venerable Jiao looked as if he had been struck by lightning. He looked at this scene with a blank expression. Xianyuan Zhongtian was already second on the Tai True Immortal list. Who could his master be? Could it be that these 3 are really celestial masters? Impossible. How could it be? If they were celestial masters, how could they know this kid? Venerable Jiao and Paluto did not know who Xianyuan Zhongtian's master was, but Long Qing knew. Otherwise, he would not have recognized the purple jade back on the ancestral planet and tried to rob it. Get up. Emperor Bai nodded lightly. Yes. Xianyuan Zhongtian stood up with a complicated expression. Brother Bai, is this your disciple? Ning Qi looked at Xianyuan Zhongtian with a smile. Zhongtian, this is your martial uncle Ning, Emperor Bai said calmly. Ning Qi could see that the relationship between him and Xianyuan Zhongtian seemed to be a little strange. Master, don't you know how to greet people? Chapter 2741. So it's martial nephew Zhongtian. Nice to meet you. We nearly destroyed the Dragon King Temple. Our own people fought each other. Ning Qi smiled. Xianyuan Zhongtian's mouth twitched when he heard the word martial nephew. Xianyuan Zhongtian was ranked second on the Tai True Immortal list. In this world, apart from immortal emperors and immortal monarchs, even the first on the Tai True Immortal list could not make Xianyuan Zhongtian give in. However, today, he had to call a young fellow at the Golden Immortal stage martial uncle. Calling him martial nephew? This was a great humiliation to Xianyuan Zhongtian. However, when Xianyuan Zhongtian glanced at Mo Xie and Ji Fei, the anger in his heart was extinguished. The kid in front of him not only had a good personal relationship with his master, but he also didn't know who the other 2 were, but they must be immortal monarchs. Xianyuan Zhongtian was very surprised that Ning Qi could have a good relationship with 3 immortal monarchs at the same time. When he thought that the other 2 also wanted to capture Ning Qi alive, Xianyuan Zhongtian felt that Ning Qi's background was more terrifying than he had imagined. Martial ancestor Long Qing walked in front of Emperor Bai and bowed respectfully. Then, he cupped his hands at Ning Qi and said, Long Qing greets martial uncle. You're quite tactful. You're more tactful than your master and your second senior brother. Ning Qi smiled. Long Cheng's expression changed when he heard this, but he didn't say anything in the end. Venerable Jiao and Proto were still dumbfounded by the situation before them. They just stared blankly at Ning Qi in disbelief. Is this young man a reincarnated almighty? Yes, that must be it. Venerable Jiao looked at Ning Qi with a hint of fear in his eyes. At this moment, this was the only reason that could explain why Ning Qi was friends with Xianyuan Zhongtian's master. It could also explain why Ning Qi could use tricks that could even fool him. If he really was the reincarnation of an old monster who had lived for an unknown period of time and had awakened his memories, it was normal for him to have many strange tricks that the younger generation had never seen before. I already know what happened to your second disciple. You don't need to interfere in this matter anymore. Leave. Bai Di glanced at Xianyuan Zhongtian and waved his hand. Xianyuan Zhongtian's eyes flickered as he glanced at Ning Qi and whispered to Emperor Bai, Master, he is the one that those two want. Almost all the Tai in the world have received news from them. What's wrong with those two? Didn't you hear what your master said? Mo Xie glanced coldly at Xianyuan Zhongtian. Xianyuan Zhongtian, who was extremely domineering in front of ordinary primordial immortals, felt a chill run down his spine when Mo Xie glanced at him, and a thin layer of sweat broke out on his forehead. What a dense great Tao of sword will! The immortal world's #1 sword sovereign, Mo Xie. Xianyuan Zhongtian looked fearfully at Mo Xie and guessed Mo Xie's true identity. All right, no matter what, he's still my disciple. Give him some face. White Emperor sighed. If Mo Xie really went berserk, even he wouldn't be able to stop her. The first rank on the Immortal Monarch leaderboard wasn't obtained for nothing. Even among the immortal monarchs in the Heavenly Tao family, there weren't many who could defeat Mo Xie. If it weren't for you, they would all be dead. Mo Xie snorted coldly. After pausing for a while, he smiled at Ning Qi and said, Brother Ning, what other enemies do you have? Tell me all of them. When you run away, I'll help you get rid of them first. Jiang Yu. Ning Qi rolled his eyes. This. I'll leave it for you to deal with in the future, Brother Ning. Mo Xie smiled awkwardly. Paoluo Duo and Venerable Jiao looked at Mo Xie blankly. A trace of doubt welled up in their hearts. Isn't his relationship with Ning Qi too good? Xianyuan Zhongtian felt a lingering fear in his heart. Mo Xie could clearly tell that Ning Qi had no control over himself. If his master wasn't here today, and there were only 2 other people, perhaps, thinking of this, Xianyuan Zhongtian's heart could not help but twitch violently. Even if he was the second on the Tai True Immortal leaderboard, what could he do against these monsters? Wasn't his life or death decided by a single thought from them? He suddenly understood how Venerable Jiao and the others felt back then. Thinking about it, Venerable Jiao and the others felt the same way when they faced him. Something's not right. Ji Fei's expression suddenly changed. What's going on? Mo Xie and Emperor Bai looked at Ji Fei at the same time, their eyes flashing with a trace of seriousness. Someone is disrupting the way of heaven, disrupting my calculations. We have to send Brother Ning away as soon as possible. Those 2 will appear here at any time. Ji Fei's expression was a little grave. Is there such a thing? Who's disrupting the way of heaven? It's too late. Someone is using the way of heaven to search for Brother Ning. If he finds Brother Ning, the 3 of us will be exposed. Ji Fei's expression suddenly changed. Then, he immediately patted Ning Qi's forehead. An item that looked like a turtle shell was slapped into Ning Qi's sea of consciousness. Ning Qi suddenly had a mysterious feeling, as if some kind of connection between him and heaven and earth was inexplicably broken. Send Brother Ning away. Ji Fei bellowed. Mo Xie and Emperor Bai took action at the same time. The 3 of their palms landed on Ning Qi's head at almost the same time. Wait, Ning Qi hurriedly said, but the next moment, he found himself floating in the pitch-black universe. The tea stall was gone, Emperor Bai and the other two were gone, Xianyuan Zhongtian and the rest were also gone. If you want to send me away, you should at least let me tell you the direction. Ning Qi smiled bitterly and shook his head. He then released Nuwa and entered the cockpit, instructing Nuwa to check their current coordinates. Master, after looking at the route map, Nuwa used the method of comparison to lock onto their current location. She then said to Ning Qi in surprise, "We have arrived at the ghost region." "What?" "The three of them sent me to a random place, and it just so happened that they sent me to this ghost region? Are you sure?" Ning Qi's eyes flashed with a trace of astonishment. "I'm not wrong. We have indeed arrived at the ghost region." Nuwa checked again and said, "If that's the case, let's hurry along the route given by Patriarch Xianjian." Ning Qi smiled. "When luck comes, it can't be stopped. Emperor Bai and the other two saved him a lot of time this time. Otherwise, with his speed, it would take at least a few decades to reach the ghost region. Don't get involved in the matters of the outside world in the future." After sending Ning Qi away, Emperor Bai glanced at Xianyuan Zhongtian, then left the planet with Mo Xie. After a while, Daoist Jiao touched his bald head and asked Xianyuan Zhongtian carefully, "Brother Xianyuan, Xianyuan Zhongtian seemed to be thinking about what Emperor Bai had just said." Hearing Daoist Jiao's question, he was silent for a while, then said indifferently, "My master is Immortal Emperor Bai. The other two should be Immortal Emperor Mo Xie and the sect master of the Yixian sect." Chapter 2742. "Brother Xianyuan, you must be joking, right?" Venerable Jiao laughed. Xianyuan Zhongtian's message was shocking. He had never heard of White Emperor Celestial Lord, Mo Xie Celestial Lord, and the sect master of the mysterious sect being so close. Many years ago, he had heard that White Emperor Celestial Lord and Mo Xie Celestial Lord had fought somewhere. "Do I look like I'm joking?" Xianyuan Zhongtian looked at Venerable Jiao. Venerable Jiao's expression became serious. "No, don't get involved in this anymore," Xianyuan Zhongtian muttered to himself. Then, he extended his hand and grabbed Longqing. The next moment, he disappeared in front of Reverend Jiao and Proto. Proto was silent for a while. He turned around and left without saying anything. He was from the Nether Dragon clan, so he had dragon blood flowing in his veins. He naturally looked down on creatures like dragons. Venerable Jiao did not have the time to care about Proto's unreasonable behavior. He looked around, then flew toward Blue Water Star. It was obvious that 3 celestial lords were involved. He was only at the early stage of primordial unity. If he got involved, he would not be able to face the revenge of the other side. That guy has an extraordinary origin. If he's really the reincarnation of a powerful being, he'll come to Blue Water Star to find me. When Venerable Jiao returned to Blue Water Star, he suddenly felt 3 familiar auras. "Come out." Venerable Jiao frowned. Whoosh, whoosh. Venerable Qingxian, Qi Shuezhen, and Venerable Game suddenly appeared in front of Venerable Jiao. "I heard there's news about that kid?" Venerable Game asked Venerable Jiao. "What? Why should I tell you?" Venerable Jiao raised his eyebrows. "Alright, if we can capture that kid, we might be able to exchange him for the Celestial Lord token." Qi Shuezhen waved her hand to stop the two from quarreling. She had a serious expression on her face. "Don't think too much about it. You can't imagine where that guy came from. This matter ends here. Don't ask me, I don't want to talk about it." Venerable Jiao smiled and rushed into the depths of the sea, returning to his Jiao Dragon Palace. The remaining 3 looked at each other in confusion. They did not understand what Venerable Jiao meant. What kind of background could a golden immortal have? Not long after, 2 figures descended from the sky in the empty tea stall. "Looks like someone caught that kid, but he was kidnapped here." Jiang Hao said calmly. As long as he doesn't stay in the ancestral star, I will find him one day. Jiang Yu sneered. He paused for a moment. That person said that someone was stopping him from casting spells. Who in the immortal world could do that? Only one person, Ji Fei of the Yixian sect. Jiang Hao smiled. I heard that when he was still a heaven immortal, he predicted that Mo Xie and Emperor Bai would become immortal monarchs. Now that he has become a immortal monarch, I'm afraid even the two of us will fall into his trap. Ji Fei of the mysterious sect, Jiang Yu smiled coldly. I remember that our Jiang family still has a few magical treasures that can isolate heaven's secret. Not bad. Jiang Hao smiled. Unfortunately, they are all with the few old ancestors. It will be difficult for you to get them. Before that person went to the Shunluo realm, the disciples of our Tiandao clan were isolated by the heavenly axiom. Apart from the heavenly axiom, no one can plot against us. But once that person left, the heavenly axiom became estranged from us. The old ancestors are afraid that the remnants of the ancient immortal clans will come looking for us. If you want to plot against them, you will have to be stronger than them. Jiang Yu fell silent. After a long while, he suddenly said, This kid has the brand of the Tiandao clan on him, and is considered an outer disciple. All these years, the ancient transformation old ancestors of the 9 great Tiandao clans have been using various means to search for geniuses in the world. Those geniuses who don't have enough lucky chances will be automatically eliminated, and the patriarchs will use their methods to allow them to enter a mystic realm and begin a trial. Those who survive in the end will become disciples of our heavenly Dao clan, replenishing our fresh blood. If we let the patriarchs begin the trial in advance, those who survive in the end will directly arrive at our heavenly Dao clan. If they don't arrive, then they will die in the mystic realm. Oh, that's not a bad idea. But what kind of people are the patriarchs? How could they be willing to listen to us? Could it be that he had to tell them that this kid had the divine Luo clan on him? The key to the lower realm? Jiang Hao said sarcastically. Haha, the patriarchs are cowardly. If the ancient immortal clan makes a move, the patriarchs will start the trial in advance to prepare for battle. Jiang Yu smiled. What do you mean? Jiang Hao frowned. He suddenly did not understand this half-brother of his. Our heavenly Dao clan is suppressing all directions. There are still countless ancient immortals who didn't die because they acted as bait. We just need to release 1 or 2 of them. Jiang Yu said indifferently. Isn't your idea a little bold? Jiang Hao gasped. The great immortal demon war had ended a long time ago, and those ancient immortals had been suppressed for a long time. Today, Jiang Yu actually planned to release 1 or 2 of them. Are you afraid? Jiang Yu glanced at Jiang Hao mockingly. Tell me. Since you have such a plan, you should have thought of which ancient immortal you want to release. Jiang Hao did not care about Jiang Yu's mockery and said indifferently. The patriarchs won't be too concerned if their cultivation is low, but if their cultivation is too high, I'm afraid they won't be able to suppress them. Do you remember that when you were young, the patriarchs once said that there was a Marshal Tianping in the ancient heavenly court who was in charge of the 80,000 heavenly river navy? Jiang Yu smiled faintly. Jiang Hao frowned and said, that was a third step, Almighty. Back then, in order to suppress him, 19 of our heavenly Dao clan's third step, Almighty, died. In the end, it was that person who personally attacked and destroyed his primordial spirit. Now, he has lost his mind. I heard that he howls all day and wants to destroy the world. He used to be a third step Almighty, but now that his primordial spirit has been destroyed, his cultivation is at most the same as yours and mine. If he was stronger, even if he was in the ancient state, the patriarchs could easily suppress him again because he has no mind. However, such an almighty existence in the ancient heavenly court suddenly broke free. Our heavenly Tao clan suppression will definitely shock the patriarchs, and they will suspect that the ancient immortal clans are making a comeback. By then, they will definitely bring forward the trial. Jiang Yu said with a smile. That's a bold idea. Jiang Hao shook his head slightly. If we can go to Shunluo world, we will have a chance to reach the third step. So, what's wrong with being bold? Jiang Yu sneered. Alright, let's give it a try. Chapter 2743. There was no greenery on this desolate planet. It was almost completely covered in yellow sand. Even the air was filled with a strong sense of restlessness. There was no trace of celestial chi here. Not to mention mortals, even celestials could not stay here for long. Otherwise, their cultivation would definitely regress. Heaven's loathing land. A hint of disgust flashed across Jiang Hao's eyes as he said indifferently. For immortals, this was the kind of place they hated the most. It was like mortals going to the universe where they couldn't breathe. Immortal chi was the air for immortals. A place without immortal chi was a land of death. It would have an impact on their own cultivation. Some of the more powerful danger zones would die. Earth could make an immortal no different from a mortal. Only a place like this can hold that, Marshal. Jiang Yu smiled. At this moment, there seemed to be a flash of light in the sky. The two of them moved slightly and merged into the ground. A somewhat mechanical divine will swept over the place where they were previously, but it did not discover the two of them. Let's go. The longer we delay, the easier it will be for us to be discovered. After the divine sense left, the two of them slowly floated up from the ground. Yes. Jiang Hao nodded and looked around. It should be in that direction. I can feel a faint celestial chi there. Not long after, the two of them arrived at the foot of a tall mountain. There was not a hint of greenery on this mountain. It was completely made of yellow soil. At the foot of the mountain, there was a pitch-black hole. There seemed to be a faint whistling sound coming from it. It sounded like the sound of the wind, but also like the howling of some kind of creature. We've found the place. How do we break the seal? This was personally set up by that person back then. Jiang Hao looked at Jiang Yu. The two of them were certain that that person was imprisoned in this hole. So much time has passed that even the seal has weakened significantly. There's bound to be a way to break it, Jiang Yu sneered. You guys are ancient immortals? Suddenly, a voice came from the hole. The voice was calm and did not carry any killing intent. Jiang Hao and Jiang Yu looked at each other and suddenly felt that something was wrong. According to the records, the one who was suppressed here should have lost his humanity. All that was left in his heart was killing. How could an existence that only knew how to kill have such a neutral and peaceful voice? Seems like you guys aren't ancient immortals. But it doesn't matter. It's been a long time since anyone came here. There isn't even anyone to talk to. The voice seemed to be getting closer and closer. Jiang Hao and Jiang Yu were dumbfounded as they looked at the entrance of the cave. They saw a guy who looked like a scholar walking out of it. It's an illusion. The two of them reacted immediately, but a layer of cold sweat still appeared on their back. It was impossible for the other party to escape the seal of this place, so this figure was not real. Even so, they still felt uncomfortable. After all, they were facing a great figure from the ancient immortal clan, a third-step cultivator. Don't be afraid. My true appearance is a bit scary, and I don't like it. That's why I can only change into this appearance to meet the guest. The scholar smiled at the two of them. Your canopy, Marshal? Jiang Yu said with a frown. Exactly. The scholar smiled. After a pause, he continued, however, I am the good in his heart. His evil is resting, so don't wake him up. Good and evil? The two of them looked at each other. Jiang Hao said with a strange expression, I heard that Canopy Marshal's primordial spirit has been destroyed. How can he still have consciousness? We don't have consciousness. We are just pure good and evil thoughts. Originally, we couldn't speak, but after being lonely for a long time, we learned to speak one day. The scholar smiled. Jiang Yu changed to someone else. This place is very strange. Jiang Hao said with a frown. Okay. Jiang Yu nodded and did not argue with Jiang Hao this time. When the scholar saw the two of them turn and leave, the smile on his face became even wider. It seems that the two of you have been at the peak of the second step for a long time. Do you want to step into the third step? The two of them paused for a moment and turned around in unison. Do you have any brilliant ideas? Let's make a deal. If you let me go, I will teach you how to step into the third step. Fair enough, right? The scholar said with a smile. Senior, please don't joke. You are a third step cultivator. If we let you go, will we still be alive? Jiang Hao sneered. He wanted to leave, but he noticed that Jiang Yu's eyes were shining. He said to the scholar excitedly, Let's talk about the details of the deal. Niwa. Ning Qi moved slightly and appeared in the cockpit out of thin air. Before this, he had been trying to repair the puppet in the top cultivation training ground. As a result, he found that the 9-hell hammering technique was useless. The puppet was not a magic weapon. Its internal structure was extremely exquisite. Almost every part was engraved with runes of the same effect. If one was not proficient in the Mo family's puppet refining technique, it was almost impossible to repair it. Niwa, where are we now? Ning Qi sat on the sofa and looked at the star region outside the screen. Niwa moved and appeared next to Ning Qi. With a gentle tap, a huge virtual screen appeared in front of him and demonstrated the route for Ning Qi. Master, we've already passed this place and this place. After a few more jumps, we'll be able to reach your destination in about a month. However, along the way, the Niwa has detected at least 7 planets that don't have the slightest trace of immortal qi. They're like deadlands. The machines we sent to those planets did not send back any images. We lost contact with them as soon as we arrived. Niwa said with a strange expression. There's such a place? Ning Qi was slightly taken aback. He then smiled. Don't worry about it. It's a ghost realm after all. It's a barren land. Perhaps there's some special magnetic field there that affects the operation of the machines. Niwa nodded thoughtfully. However, it seemed that she was still unhappy about the failure of the machines. If there was a chance, she would definitely explore those planets again. The top cultivation training ground. Ning Qi took out the puppet again and studied it for a long time before throwing it back into the spatial bag. He then took out the 4 flying swords and used the 9-hell hammering technique to refine them for more than 10 years. After confirming that the 4 flying swords would not improve in quality in a short period of time, he put them back into his consciousness. Ning Qi had tried to meditate, but because his cultivation base had already reached the bottleneck of the perfected gold immortal realm, he could not increase his cultivation base in the slightest before he attained Tao fruit and became a grand heavenly immortal. As for attaining Tao fruit, Ning Qi had no idea how to do it. The Merit Tower, a thought flashed through his mind. Ning Qi suddenly realized that he had not been to the Merit Tower ever since he became a golden immortal. Thinking to this point, Ning Qi's heart moved, and he appeared on the 4th floor of the Merit Tower. When he arrived at the 5th floor, he found that the surroundings were densely packed with ancient books. Among them, the most eye-catching one caused Ning Qi to be a little shocked. Chapter 2744. At this moment, Ning Qi's mood was like a glimmer of hope. He had researched that puppet for many years, but had never been able to repair it. In the end, there was actually a Mahist engineering technique manual on the 5th floor of the Merit Tower that he had never been able to come up to. Mo family's mechanism technique, exchange price, 100,000 merit points. Haha, Ning Qi's mouth twitched a few times. 100,000 merit points. He only had a few thousand merit points now, there was still a long way to go. 100,000 merit points. He would have to kill 100 Xian immortals to get it. With the Zhu Xian sword array, killing Xian immortals is indeed not a big problem, but where can I find 100 Xian immortals? Ning Qi's eyes flashed with a trace of contemplation. After thinking for a few seconds, a target suddenly appeared in his mind. Profound Azure Mansion. Why didn't I think of it before? Ning Qi smiled. Other than Profound Azure Mansion, there seemed to be no other force in the immortal world that was more suitable for Ning Qi. When this is over, I will find a few opportunities to join Profound Azure Mansion and destroy them from the inside. Ning Qi already had an idea. There were many forces under the Profound Azure Mansion, and if he dealt with them one by one, there would be a way to gather 100,000 merit points. Putting the Mo clan's mechanism technique aside for now, Ning Qi explored the 5th floor. He discovered that aside from the Mo clan's mechanism technique, there were many other immortal techniques on the 5th floor. These immortal techniques all seemed very ancient. The cheapest one cost 10,000 merit points, while the most expensive one cost 30,000 merit points, more than the Mo clan's mechanism technique. They had something in common with the Mahist's mechanism art. In the current immortal world, they were unheard of. They were probably all kinds of lost immortal arts. These immortal arts have existed for quite a long time. Any one of them would probably be able to be exchanged for an extremely abundant amount of cultivation resources in the current immortal world. Ning Qi sighed. Unfortunately, he didn't have enough merit points, otherwise, he would be able to get a lot of benefits from these immortal arts. After his spiritual force left the merit tower, Ning Qi took out the 4 flying swords to practice. Every time he set up the immortal vanquishing sword array, the sword array would extract an amount of immortal qi that was equivalent to a dozen perfected golden immortals. However, Ning Qi could still endure such an amount. The gates of the hell-suppressing fan had an endless stream of energy gushing out, replenishing Ning Qi's body. He could definitely make the fairy-slaying sword formation last for a very, very long time, so long that it was unimaginable to ordinary people. Although the power of the celestial slaying sword formation is great, the requirements are also extremely high. Right now, it is only a low-grade Tao tool, yet it requires so much celestial spiritual energy. If I wait for them to recover to a mid-grade Tao tool, they will suck me dry in an instant. However, it is not that easy to recover to a mid-grade Tao tool. As for some treasures that can increase one's artifact forging skills, it will be a long road to restore them to a mid-grade Tao artifact in the Blessed Paradises. Ning Qi sighed. As his understanding of the 9 hells tempering art increased, he also looked up many posts related to refining techniques in the All Heavens Forum. Many of the posts mentioned that every refining technique had a corresponding holy land. This kind of holy land wasn't a holy land for cultivation, but it could amplify one's refining technique. It was known as a holy land for refiners. In the immortal realm, there were more than a dozen such holy lands. Each holy land represented a different school of refiners. Ning Qi didn't know which school the 9 hells tempering art belonged to. He could only be sure if he personally visited these holy lands. It was more likely that these holy lands didn't have a holy land. There was a holy land that was compatible with the 9 hells tempering art and had an amplifying effect. This was because the 9 hells tempering art was the #1 refining technique in the immortal realm. It had been passed down for a long time. Today's refiners had only appeared after the Great War of Immortals and Demons. There was a huge gap between the two. No matter what, I'll have to make a trip to the dozen or so holy lands of smithing. However, blacksmiths are extremely mysterious. Even the All Heavens Forum hasn't revealed the locations of these holy lands. It'll take some effort to find the exact location. Time flew. Ning Qi pinched his fingers and calculated, then left the top cultivation training ground and returned to the Nuwa. However, as soon as he appeared in the cockpit, Ning-Chi felt that something was wrong. The Nuwa seemed to have lost its momentum and was falling rapidly. Ning-Chi didn't have time to ask. With a thought, he wanted to stop the Nuwa from falling. However, he was shocked to find that all the immortal chi in his body had disappeared. He couldn't even use the immortal techniques and supernatural powers that he possessed. It was as if he had become a slightly stronger immortal. Ning-Chi had experienced this when he was turning into a mortal. Therefore, after the shock, Ning-Chi immediately realized that he and the Nuwa might have entered some kind of strange formation. His cultivation was completely suppressed. "Nuwa, are you there?" Ning-Chi looked around but couldn't find any trace of the Nuwa. Then, through the screen in the cockpit, Ning-Chi found that the Nuwa was about to fall into a valley. Boom! A loud sound reverberated in all directions. The birds and beasts flew up in a panic, occasionally turning their heads to look at the uninvited guest in horror. The originally beautiful valley was now shrouded in dust and fog. Under the dust and fog, a huge object plunged into the valley. Ning-Chi felt dizzy. It seemed that this place not only suppressed his cultivation, but also his divine soul. The crash of the Nuwa took him 5 or 6 breaths before he came to his senses. 10 minutes later, Ning-Chi came to the cabin door of the goddess Nuwa. He was sure that the functions of the goddess Nuwa had all failed. Even goddess Nuwa was nowhere to be found. It was as if the goddess Nuwa was no longer a piece of magical equipment but a dead object that had lost its power and intelligence. Ning-Chi also checked the various robots in the Nuwa. Without exception, they had become lifeless and could not be activated at all, just like the Nuwa. Ning-Chi's own strength had almost become that of an ordinary person. He only had a little bit of strength left. Now, even leaving the Nuwa ship had become an extremely difficult task. Standing in front of the cabin door, Ning-Chi held a wrench in his hand and looked around. About a few hours later, the cabin door of the Nuwa fell to the ground with a loud sound. Then, Ning-Chi walked out of the Nuwa and looked around. The route that Nuwa set was given by ancestor Xianjian. Without my consent, she would not change the route to other planet. So, could this be the planet that ancestor Xianjian wanted me to come to? Ning-Chi looked at the surrounding scenery and muttered to himself. In this short period of time, he had confirmed several points. There was no spiritual chi in this place. Chapter 2745. Ning-Chi suddenly remembered that Nuwa had said that she had encountered 7 or 8 strange planets along the way. She had specially sent robots to check them out, but they had lost contact with all of them. However, those planets did not seem to have any life at all, as if they were dead planets. And the one before him, at least he could see many small creatures secretly sizing him up from the surrounding forest. Perhaps this planet was the same as the 7 or 8 other planets. The only difference was that it had a little more life? With that thought, Ning-Chi pushed off with both legs and his entire body shot up into the sky. He flew for about 100 feet before falling straight down. Following that, Ning-Chi found a huge boulder and bombarded it with his fists, making loud noises. Not long after, the huge boulder was smashed into pieces by Ning-Chi. Ning-Chi stood where he was and was silent for a long time. He could not use 90,000 kilometers in a breath, nor could he use the 8-9 arcane art. Ning-Chi could not use anything related to immortals at the moment. Originally, he could fly from one end of the planet to the other with just a thought. But now, he could only jump about 100 feet. Originally, he could silently turn a huge boulder into dust with a single punch. But now, he could only rely on brute force to turn them into rubble. If it's always like this, then how should I leave this place? Ning-Chi thought of the most crucial problem. If he could not fly and Nuwa could not be activated, Wouldn't he have to stay on this planet for the rest of his life? A hint of seriousness appeared in Ning Qi's eyes. If he wanted to leave this place, he had to find out why Old Man Mysterious Sword had asked him to come here. With that thought, Ning Qi hesitated for a moment. He walked up to Nuwa and tapped it lightly. With a whoosh, Nuwa disappeared on the spot. Fortunately, the space bag can be used. The system did not screw up at this time. Ning Qi heaved a sigh of relief. If Nuwa could not be stored away, he would have a huge headache. He could not leave Nuwa here to be exposed to the wind and rain, could he? He was not sure where Nuwa had gone. She might have been suppressed by some kind of power here, so he did not feel at ease leaving Nuwa here. Just as Ning Qi was exploring the valley and preparing to find a way out, the Tiandao clan received bad news. The ancient Immortal clan, who was in charge of the Heavenly River's 80,000 navy, the third-step mighty General Tianpeng, had been rescued. Every place where the ancient Immortal clans were being suppressed was guarded by the Tiandao family. When the guards realized that the Canopy Marshal had disappeared, their faces turned green and they immediately sent the news back. Deep within the universe, in a certain mysterious mystic realm, there was a tall mountain. On this mountain there was a statue. The statue's appearance seemed to be covered by a layer of mist. Even if one stood very close to it, one would not be able to see its facial features clearly. In front of this statue there was a large hall. At this moment, there were over 20 Tendo clan members seated in the hall. An elder of the clan. The group of elders in the hall who were no longer young could be said to be the strongest experts in the immortal world, and also the existences with the highest status in the immortal world. Their gazes were currently focused on a young cultivator kneeling in the center of the hall. At this moment, this young cultivator's face was pale, his lips were purple, and large beads of sweat dripped down his face. He looked at 3 of the elders with a pleading gaze. Ahem! An elder in a green robe, even his hair and eyes were dark green, coughed and smiled. We've already checked the Canopy Marshal's restrictive spell. There's no damage at all. May I ask, how did the person who saved him escape your eyes? Disappeared? The young cultivator was dumbfounded. Junior has been paying attention to the situation over there. It was just a moment and then he disappeared. There's no movement at all? One of the elders suddenly spoke. Not at all. The young cultivator hurriedly nodded. At this moment, the other elders all looked in the direction the young cultivator was looking at. The 3 elders sitting there were the ancestors of the Tiandao clan's Jiang family. The Canopy Marshal was also under the Jiang family's supervision. Now that something had happened, they naturally needed an explanation. We've already discussed it. There should be a mole. The 3 of them looked at each other and one of them slowly spoke. Mole, the hall fell silent for a moment. If one looked closely, they would see that there seemed to be a trace of panic and fear hidden in the eyes of these elders. After so many years, there's finally movement from that side. I didn't think they would be able to plant a pawn in our Tiandao clan. Everyone, there's no need to panic. The Canopy Marshal's origin soul has already been destroyed by that person. The strongest one is only at the ancient state like you and me, and he doesn't have his own consciousness. It won't be too difficult to deal with him. Since they're acting so sneakily, they won't be any better than us. Could it be that they're just bait to lure us out? At that time, with our strength, they only need an initial third-step cultivator to kill us. At that time, the Tiandao clan will be completely destroyed. There's a bit of a chance, but it's not too high. After so many years, if there are a few figures who can make decisions on that side who have reincarnated, they might be planning something. Soon, we'll definitely have a battle with them. Jiang Tianche, Jiang Jianba, Jiang Yuanshan, the mole this time must be from your Jiang family. What do the 3 of you have to say? The other 8 families have been suppressing those ancient immortals for many years, and nothing has happened. Humph, I've already warned your Jiang family to keep a low profile. Our goal is to transcend this world and go to the Shunluo realm. The disciples of the 8 families have been painstakingly cultivating and have never stepped into the immortal realm. Only your Jiang family often sends disciples to the immortal realm to cause trouble. Jiang Tianche, I remember that many years ago your descendants were on the ancestral planet. Wasn't he crippled by someone on the ancestral planet? He didn't embarrass the Jiang family, but the Tiandao clan. We're going to embarrass ourselves along with you. The green-robed, green-haired, and green-eyed elder looked coldly at the 3 Jiang family elders. Seeing that the elders of his family were surrounded, the young cultivator kneeling in the middle of the hall turned pale, and his eyes were filled with regret. Have you said enough? Jiang Tianche's hair and brows were white, and he looked like a sage. He glanced at the green-robed elder, then at the other elders, and said with a smile, "We can't even be sure if the traitor is from the Jiang clan this time, yet you guys want to throw the blame on the Jiang clan? We're here today to discuss how to solve this problem, and not find someone to take the blame. Settle this matter and not find someone else to take the blame. Even if it's my Jiang family's fault, does it have nothing to do with you?" You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.